окупанти до нас в Україну. Форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 872 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And tonight is the Sunday night fundraiser night, and we have some big news to cover. Also, a huge shout out to David Romano, who just put in a 600 Canadian. Huge support. And also, it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. On that very high note, as soon as we got live on air, a massive $600 Canadian donation from David Romano to revive soldiers of Ukraine. Absolutely incredible. And kicking off a crazy night of news, as we have gotten breaking news that the Russian Federation is truly showing the clearest signs of collapse that we have ever seen over the course of the war, as rival gangs in the city of St. Petersburg, in the downtown area today, began to conduct open warfare against each other, engaging in massive firefights that were captured on film and are starting to circulate like wildfire around the internet in Russia's second largest city. We were able to get breaking news from inside of Moscow itself that China and Russia are beginning joint military drills here incredibly soon, which we'll be talking about in a little bit more detail. In the meantime, we saw massive fires break out within the area of the Krasnodar Oblast. At the exact same time, the Russian forces are taking incredibly high losses inside of the Vovchansk, Bakhmut, and Avdiivka fronts. And in the Bakhmut and Avdiivka fronts, it appears that if any frontline progress is being made by the Russians, it is incredibly marginal, and it's being made at significant losses of Russian manpower. We have loads and loads of news to cover tonight. It is an absolutely insane night of news coverage, especially inside of the Ukraine war, but I do have to once again remind everyone that tonight is the usual and traditional Sunday fundraiser night, and tonight's fundraiser is for Revive Soldiers of Ukraine, a nonprofit that specializes in helping out wounded and mortally wounded Ukrainian soldiers in recovering from their injuries and then putting them onto the path of recovery, helping them to be able to walk again, conduct basic tasks, and in some cases, even return back to service in the Ukrainian armed forces if those wounded choose to do so. They are an amazing nonprofit, and any support that the Leaf Spring Army can give to the Revive Soldiers of Ukraine organization tonight would be absolutely incredible, as we have already raised a whopping $1,148 as massive donations keep rolling in. I think we're going to hit the $3,000 goal tonight without a doubt, but while we're hitting the $3,000 goal, the Russians are hitting the absolute bottom of the barrel as far as it goes for governmental stability inside the Russian Federation, and what is, of course, unfolding because of that. St. Petersburg is the second largest city inside of the Russian Federation. The only city that is larger than St. Petersburg is the capital city of Moscow. Moscow and St. Petersburg are the only two cities that really matter to the central Russian government and are incredibly important not only to Russian governmental stability, but also for the continuation of the war inside of Ukraine. But that appears to be changing massively, as we're seeing on the ground today that rival gangs began to conduct shootings with each other in St. Petersburg. And you wouldn't believe it. You just wouldn't believe it if I told y'all they removed the clip. The only clip we had of the actual firefight that went on in St. Petersburg has been removed. So I will explain to y'all what y'all would have seen in the clip if y'all could see it. And trust me, bro, because we did have video evidence for this earlier, and now they decided to remove the video evidence. So I will explain what y'all would have seen. It was someone inside of an apartment block looking down onto the street as we saw an entire, what we would call, two fire teams of gang members moving in between some cars that were parked right at the bottom of the building. And as soon as a one shot rang out off camera, all hell broke loose and a massive firefight began to unfold right below the very person that was filming this video. This appears to be the beginning of a massive gang war that is happening inside of St. Petersburg, and we believe that the reason why that gang war is happening is due to massive corruption inside of the St. Petersburg city administration, the police department, and also a withering and cracking of Russia's civil infrastructure, as the war in Ukraine has been taking an incredibly heavy toll on Russia's governmental abilities. This is something that we do have to say is very serious, and hopefully Matthew will be able to find us possibly some video footage of this out on Twitter somewhere, although that may be a insurmountable goal at the moment, considering he's also having to keep track of the top donations for the fundraiser and also run a poll at the same time. So I'm not really sure if he'd be able to do that.
I'll see what I can spot in the meantime, though. I'll do a scan on Twitter and see if I can spot some video. That's kind of weird that Reddit took it down, though, but I'm sure someone on Twitter somewhere has posted it.
And of course, Matthew is an absolute legend. And we will be looking around, hopefully, and Matthew will be able to find that so that way we can circle back to it and cover it. But moving on from that in the meantime and continuing on talking about what's going on inside the Russian Federation, we can see that inside of Moscow, there was a very interesting announcement that was made today that once again pertains to the People's Republic of China and ongoing developments in between the People's Republic of China, the Russian Federation, and Belarus, and forms of military cooperation amongst the parties involved. We were able to hear that China and Russia will be beginning joint military exercises here in the very near future, according to the Kyiv Independent. The news comes days after NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg on July 11th said that China is a decisive enabler of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. We do not know the absolute size of these joint military drills. The Belarusian one was an anti-terrorist training operation, which involved a smaller amount of Chinese forces transported on board one single Y-20 transport aircraft. We believe that the military drills in between China and the Russian Federation may be far larger in scope, possibly involving multiple battalions, or maybe even multiple combined arms brigades of the People's Liberation Army working in unison with the Russian Federation in this joint military exercise. We do not know the exact details at the moment, but it is once again showing us that the Chinese are starting to get more and more involved in trying to, at least in a diplomatic sense, present themselves to the Russian world, not only the Russians, but the Belarusians and many other countries associated with Russia, as the next big strongman that will be able to lead them and the Chinese to success in the future. We believe that this is a part of a larger Chinese diplomatic plan to make sure to tie in as many countries as possible into a Chinese sphere and to make sure that those countries are dependent upon the Chinese economically, so that way the Chinese can, of course, benefit massively off of those economic cooperations, or more so, national cooperations on every level. But this is still, once again, giving us an idea that while the Chinese are incredibly far removed, and once again, most of their national ambitions are actually focused within their regional area, just north of their borders, into the seas surrounding their eastern coastline, and also into Central Asia and the southeast areas of Asia, including the Indian subcontinent, they are still attempting in small ways to try and move themselves into that position of being a global leader and trying to pull other nations like Russia and Belarus onto their side diplomatically by conducting things that would show signs of friendship like these joint military exercises. But still, this is something that we would have to say is very interesting as far as the development is concerned, and we will be trying to keep a track on how Russian-Chinese diplomatic developments continue to evolve, as it does appear that the Chinese are trying to actively prevail themselves, or will prevail, not, sorry, wrong word, actively avail themselves to the Russians and Belarusians to try and make themselves seem like a viable leader of an upcoming Chinese sphere. Meanwhile, within the area of Voronezh, we were able to see that the Atesh group of partisans were able to once again conduct an act of sabotage against a Russian freight train, which then derailed in the area. We do not know exactly where this was around Voronezh. We are actually assuming that this may have been a rail yard inside of the city of Voronezh, due to the rail layout here looking like it was right outside of some kind of a train station or inside of a rail yard. But from the information that we've been given, apparently this derailment was caused by rail segments having been blown up or removed earlier on before this train passed over. The train began to pass over and then immediately began to derail in this area. This is once again showing that Ukrainian partisan efforts and pro-Ukrainian partisan efforts inside the Russian Federation continue to prove to be successful in causing minor disturbances and aggravations for the Russian government, as the Russian logistical framework continues to be disrupted in multiple different ways in unpredictable locations and times that, of course, are causing a significant problem, not only for the Russian war effort, but for the Russian economy at large. This will once again be a continuation throughout the war, as we have seen that railroad sabotage has been one of the primary and leading forms of sabotage that partisans undertake within the Russian Federation. It is, of course, one of the most successful per the amount of money that has to be expended on this kind of partisan activity, and not only that, it's one of the easiest to conduct as well, meaning that this is a favorite go-to for partisans inside of Russia, and it does appear that they are continuing to be fairly successful in that conducting of that form of combat, or more so form of partisan activity. But Matthew, I was wondering, have we been able to locate that footage from St. Petersburg today of the gang violence?
So I've located something that might be the video you're talking about here. It looks like a shooting on some avenue in St. Petersburg in Russia. It looks like there's several armed people in it. And if you want to see if that's the actual footage, go to our likes tab on Twitter and you can see it under that tab.
All right, and let's take a look. And oh, buddy, oh, pal, I gotta say, Matthew, you're an absolute legend. I want everyone to give a huge thank you to Enforcer Matt right now and put an LSA in the chat.
Because man,
well, no, I have to mention it because that was some quick sleuthing right there to be able to find this clip. We originally sourced it from Reddit, and now Matthew's been able to find it on Twitter. But this is showing the actual gang fight that went down in St. Petersburg just today. A huge shout out to Enforcer Matt. He absolutely saved that part of the show tonight because we were able to once again find the clip and to be able to show y'all the actual gang warfare that is going on right now in a central area of St. Petersburg. So without further ado, here is the clip. Here are our gang members. And when you see that the firing has begun, you see our gang members running around here. And by the way, everyone, I gotta say, the fundraiser is absolutely killing it. We've raised $2.4 thousand in 24 minutes, $100 a minute. Unbelievable. Keep it up, Lee Spring Army.
Tremendous amounts of funds coming in for the fundraiser. I love to see it.
And at the same time, there's a tremendous amount of disturbance going on in St. Petersburg with this ongoing firefight. Moving on.
They're slinging lead out here on the streets, man. It's of pure violence.
Man, it is straight violence. It is bloodshed out here in the city of St. Petersburg. Here is another clip of the gang fight from a different vantage point higher up inside of one of the apartment blocks. I would say that these are commie blocks, but considering how St. Petersburg has developed over the past 3 decades, these may actually be very new developments on the central outskirts, if that is a good way to explain it, of the city. But I'll show y'all here in a little bit. There they are down there, popping off a shot here and there.
Also kind of interesting, this is in broad daylight, like someone in the chat mentioned. You would think if they're going to fight like this, the gangs, you'd think they would do it at night. But no, it's right in the middle of the day where everybody can see it.
In a busy street. And now we can see them all just wandering off.
I think I saw an Abibus tracksuit, so that could indicate the gang presence.
And then we can see one cop car showed up to deal with a vehicle that appears to maybe have had a wounded passerby inside of it. But the clip ends right there, and I'm going to have to move y'all over into St. Petersburg itself because we weren't able to get an exact geolocation on this earlier, but we are able to get one now. So let me go put this in to Google Maps, and we'll be able to find this really quickly. So this is the area that they say the shooting occurred in, or more so the firefight occurred in. It was a very small firefight, and really quickly, I think it was actually down here at this end of the street. Let me go back and reference this video from the higher vantage point. Yep, it was actually the end here, because you can see this line of trees here, Matthew, and you can see how the road ends down there in kind of like a bit of a U-turn sort of a thing, which is what this is. So this person was filming from this area of the apartment building and looking northwards towards the area of pretty much the very edge of this heavily built up area of St. Petersburg. So what this is, I once again have to point this out, are armed gangs in St. Petersburg, which we haven't seen a lot of activity from throughout the entirety of the war. They are now conducting gang fights in open daylight in the middle of heavily populated and heavily trafficked areas like this right here. And the Russian police are really nowhere to be seen, and the only response we saw was a single cop car responding to one of the wounded, showing that no major police response ever occurred in this area of northern St. Petersburg, and that these gangs are just pretty much going wild at this point, and no one's trying to stop them. Someone said,
man, they're really out here solving their problems at the battle box, I guess you could say. They're out here in the battle box going at it with each other at this point.
Dude, from now on, we are giving the northeastern area, the northwestern area of St. Petersburg up here, we are now dubbing that the battle box, because it does appear
the battle box.
It does appear that this place do be where the battles are going down. Let's see if we can get a street view here and see if we can. Yep, this is actually what it looks like from the street, and no one mows a single thing, do they?
Oh, of course not, man. They can barely keep the public services running, much less mow the street.
Also, is it just me, Matthew, or does this look like a giant prison network from here on the ground?
Yeah, it really does, and that's normal living. These are commie blocks, aren't they? Like the modern version of a commie block?
Kind of, sort of, yeah, but these were actually made by private developers, which is kind of like the wild part. So this whole area is fairly new for Russia. It's only about 20 or 30 years old. But the paint job on it, dude, you know what the paint job on this building is giving off to me? Berlin Command camo. Let me go get that really quickly. Dude, oh my lord, dude, I am not lying. Okay, so just to give a little bit of background before I show this, because some people are going to be like, what is this? So back in the Cold War, there was a specific command that was made up of a multinational force inside of the area of West Berlin called the Berlin Command. And the Berlin Command had a special kind of camo pattern that they started to use around the point of the early 70s and up until the end of the Cold War. I'm about to show y'all a vehicle with this camo pattern on it, and y'all look at the color of this building. Look at it. Make sure to pay close attention to it. And then look at the Berlin Command camo. That is literally just a ripoff of Berlin Command camo, dude. Look at that.
I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty similar. I don't know what the Russians were thinking with that color pattern. Is like none of the colors on the side of that building over there match up or like complement each other. It's just depressing. Could you imagine actually like coming home to something like this every single day and that's your like reality? This is it. Like I know people will gripe about American apartments. I know some of them are awful indeed, but this is like freaking a nightmare right here. I would not want to live in that.
Dude, this is really rough, man. I wonder what the apartments actually look like inside of these buildings. Maybe we can find out? Legoland. Okay, that's not it.
What was that, like Legoland? Like the what the hell?
That's Legoland, dude. That's where you get your Legos. And then we got Okrayana. Well, is this a butcher shop? No pictures of the inside. You just go down to that little walkway right there. You get your ass butchered down in the basement. That's the butcher shop. But yeah, I gotta tell you, man, I'm not really a big fan of Russian apartment blocks, especially modern ones, because it is literally like hell. Like this is like the back rooms or something in apartment form. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wonder if they got the Chinese contractors to build this, but it kind of has like the reminiscent look of like that tofu dread construction, but it's like it looks clearly Russian, but it looks a little like a mix of Chinese architecture in it.
Man, I'll tell you, man, if this was built by the Chinese, I got a word for those Chinese contractors, man. Wabusawan. But moving on from that, dang, an anonymous viewer just wrote a 250.
That's crazy, man. We're like 100 away from goal. Literally a flat 100 away.
Man, the fundraiser is killing it tonight. Absolutely killing it. And speaking of killing, those gangs are out there apparently killing as well. They ain't calling it this the battle box for nothing up here. But a lot of people have been talking about this event, this occurrence that's happened in St. Petersburg today. And a lot of people have been throwing in their 2 cents about, is this normal for this to happen in St. Petersburg? For full-on firefights to happen in the middle of a busy street in broad daylight? Or is this the beginning of the collapse of civil control inside of Russia due to the massive strains that the Russian central government is facing? And Matthew, what are people saying about it? Do they think this is the beginning of the end for the Russians? Do they think this is fairly normal? And what are you thinking about it as well?
So it looks like the most popular option, about 41% of the audience said it's normal Russian violence, while 25% said it seems like it could be a combo of maybe an uprising plus normal violence, and only 19% said it's the start of an uprising. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know much about Russian gangs except for they're very violent. I knew that for a fact. But to me, it wouldn't seem really like an uprising. It looks more like normal Russian violence, like maybe some...
We hit the goal!
Oh, look at that. We hit the goal. Let's go.
Let's get it. But anyways, as you were saying.
So as I was saying, where was I?
I don't know. That hit they hit the goal, and I literally went, oh, I was like, no way. I was like, because this is literally $100 a minute. We raised $3,000 in 30 minutes. So my mind went blank as soon as I saw that. I was like, no freaking way. But let's see. We were on gang violence. What was happening in North St. Petersburg? You were saying...
I was saying something about how violent the gangs are, but I would say to me it looks like a normal Russian violence. It looks like 2 gangs going at it, or maybe a couple of different gangs. But that's just to my eyes, so that's my opinion. So I'm with the 41%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I don't believe that this is normal. I wouldn't say that this is a start of an uprising, that's for sure. But I would say that this is starting to show a heavy degradation of Russian civil infrastructure, even in major cities like this, to where the gangs would feel comfortable enough due to a lack of possibly a police presence due to underfunding, where they would be able to conduct a broad daylight firefight like that in the middle of a busy street. That doesn't happen all that often. I want to remind everyone of that. We have not really seen this at all during the war in really any city. We've seen riots, we've seen uprisings, but we've never seen gangs conduct firefights against each other in broad daylight like this. This is showing that organized crime is getting comfortable enough with the complete lack of policing inside of these areas that they are starting to get to the point that they are more than happy to get in a firefight in the middle of broad daylight, and they don't even expect a major response because of that. And so going off of that, I personally do think that this probably means that the Russian Federation is starting to run into some major issues in the background, such as underfunding, because so much money in the central Russian government is being diverted from civil infrastructure like policing and into the war itself in Ukraine. And that is starting to have a very severe consequence for the Russians through the remainder of this war, at least on the home front. That's what I would think, me personally. But of course, there are many different ways to interpret this. It could just be normal activity in Russia. You just never really know. But with that, I hope we were able to address the whole Russian internal affairs today situation quite well. And moving on from that, and into our next bit of news, it is time for us to move on down into Krasnodar, because we were able to see today that Krasnodar Oblast, kind of near to the ocean, is on fire. Check it out. It's some kind of a wildfire, from what we understand. We see these people on the beach showing the fire.
Oh wow, they're kind of pinned down there on the beach.
Yeah, it's like D-Day. Man, who the hell goes swimming, like, on a beach like this, dude? Like, a wave comes and hits you, you literally get dashed upon the rocks like some kind of a...
Man, you're gonna get grated like cheese on these rocks if you get, like, smashed by a wave.
Dude, you sit there, when you coming down onto this beach, you sound like one of those old sailors from, like, the Victorian era. Yar, you get dashed upon the rocks, my boy. Something like that. It's like, I wouldn't go swimming there. But it appears a lot of people do. Those fires are sweeping through. And we got to see that this is a fairly big
Страшная
ordeal.
трагедия происходит прямо сейчас. Горит заповедник большой Утриж, дорогие.
I like how you can hear the fire in this clip, and it's obviously whooshing and sucking in a lot of oxygen, meaning it's going to move quickly, and these dweebs are all just going to stand around and watch it instead of trying to get away. Like, you know, if you see a fire like that, I just want to let y'all know, general public safety announcement, the best thing to do is get in the car and drive away, because the fire is going to move where fuel is, and it's going to keep consuming a lot of oxygen, meaning that's going to keep on moving. So it's going to come towards you. So get in a car and leave. These people don't seem to know that all too well,
В районе
so they're just watching.
щели. Это чуть-чуть дальше малого Утриша. Жесть, ребята, просто жесть. Страшная трагедия.
But with that, that is end of clip, and it does seem as though fire is bad. Russians, big artisans, but fire is bad, bled. And things not going so well down in Krasnodar land, bled. But moving on from Krasnodar and all of the stuff that's going on down there, which seems to just kind of be a bit of a wildfire that's breaking out. Still pretty wild to see, though, and it's really weird to see how the Russians react to it. We got to see that last night, during one of Russia's missile attacks on Ukraine, the Ukrainians were able to whip off one of them lucky shots. Oh, excuse me. Let me start off the clip. That is a man-pad, and he's firing at a ballistic missile flying overhead. So here's the clip. Boom! See him looking up into the sky? No! Boom! Oh!
Got it.
Got
Also,
him,
did that guy
baby!
shoot that thing down in flip-flops?
Of course he shot it down in flip-flops, man. My boy's styling.
Man, what a gangster.
Man, it feels good to be a gangster. But we can see they're
Man, he's
celebrating.
more real than those Russians on the street shooting each other in St. Petersburg.
Man, this guy sits there. You know, this is one of those things I should put in Canva right there with him wearing flip-flops and holding a Piorin. I ought to put that in Canva and put the little parental advisory thing on it and put a black and white filter over it. And then sit there and start playing. Relax while I take notes, while I take totes on the marijuana smoke. No smoke, no smoke, you know, something like that. But anyways, moving on from that clip, pretty cool to see, and you got to give this guy some credit. Shooting down a ballistic missile in flip-flops with a man-pad. I mean, this man is doing more than even the American Secret Service can do these days. You got to give him credit for that. And he's just a one-man band out there on a fishing trip. for some reason with a man pad. You know, Matthew, maybe he was planning on using the man pad to fish with, and then when the missile flew over, he used it on the missile instead of the fish. Maybe.
Man, what's he fishing? Jaws or something like that? He's fishing that great white shark, you know what I mean?
Not with three. Not with three. He can't. Not with three. Shoots it with three pure, and it's just still living. But still, I gotta say, not only is that guy living, but we are living on life, because it is crazy to see that this fundraiser is now up to $3.4 thousand in 38 minutes. It is literally blowing up right now as we keep covering this news, and I love to see it. And speaking of blowing up, we got to see down near Belgorod today, something blew up on the outside of Belgorod, not in a physical way, but in a metaphorical kind of a way, as the Russians ended up raiding a Russian pig farm today in the Oblast. This is pretty bizarre, but here they are raiding a pig farm. There are the Russians. They're coming up to the pig farm.
This is a serious operation here. Got to get those little pigs out of there. You know what I mean?
Got to get some fresh recruits.
Fresh recruits and also fresh pig snout for the soldiers to eat.
Man, they're like, you're being recruited for the war effort. They look at him and they're like, and one of them's like, yeah, exactly. Hey, don't talk. He's better looking than you. Okay, to the front line. It's like, dang, dude, rough times.
Wait, did they not get in?
Hold up. There's still about a minute left to this video. There is more. They will be back.
Man, they're taking a good minute. They're having to think about their failure real quick.
Oh, there he is. The Phantom of Russia. Like the Phantom of Moscow. There he goes. He's wandering off. They keep on pausing it, and now he's coming back. Man's just strutting with an AK.
Just casually trespassing, you know?
Dude, you know what this requires? That King of the Hill theme music. You know what I'm talking about? That one that they play over like a time lapse?
Yeah, it's like, if it takes them this long to break into a door like that, it's like, that's pretty pathetic.
Dude, he's just trying to get back home, man. Like, he's just like, I want back with my people. I want home. Here comes another. Now he's just standing around. And now they finally busted down the door. And now the pig farm is theirs.
What was he, just working up the courage to kick it or something? I didn't see any equipment in his hand.
Me either. I think he literally just finally went, okay, damn it, I'm going to do it, and then broke down the door and then got in.
Wow, that was a long process for that. Now they got into the pig farm. It's all over now.
Oh, they pulled the car away. What are they doing?
Oh, that was their car, but they pulled up styling on him and whatever that was. That was like that top tier Lotta.
What the hell was that? Dude, they had that blinged out Lotta, man, with like the rims and everything. Like, what kind of Russian soldiers are these, dude?
Better yet, it's probably like a fake Bugatti kit car or something like that.
Dude, it's like that Chinese wooden Lamborghini. Let me go pull it up. Let's see. Chinese wooden Lamborghini. Aw, man. You know what's better than books? Oh, I mean, you know what's better than my Lamborghini? Knowledge. Here we go. This one right here.
Oh, hell no. Man, what in the hell? That's like a balsa wood. Man, why is it so small?
They see me rolling. They hate it. Dude, man, in China, this is considered a large size car. Like, no joke. Like, the car, have you seen how big cars are in China? They are, like, microscopic nearly.
Very small, man. Everybody's got to have a small car in China, but you can't have a big one. Only the big man's allowed to have that one. He's allowed to have, what is it, a Hanchi, I believe it's called? The state car?
Something like that. Wait, let me go try and find that Chinese limo thing.
I'm pretty sure it's a Hanchi.
Yep, the Hongqi. Like, you got that on the dot, man. But I don't think it's...
I know that thanks to Jeremy Clarkson, man. I actually didn't know that on my own. Like, I would have never known what a Hongqi was if it wasn't for the Grand Tour. I'm not gonna lie.
This is the Hongqi. But if you want to see the one that came before it, this is the one. Ooh, brother, ooh! Man,
that's rough right there. Low riding. Has absolutely no, like, body lines to it. It's just a straight hunk of metal.
Man, that thing, that thing, dude, when you come rolling up in that, you get one of those, like, little jump kit things that make the cars jump and come up playing apple bottom jeans boots with the... It's like, that does not have a VIP look to it. That has a I
Kind of gangster, really.
yeah, it does. Well, that's kind of the Communist Party of China, I guess, but really gangsta kind of a look. Not really a stately kind of a look, but yeah. Ugh. Oh my
The
goodness.
the new one looks like a rip-off between like a BMW 7 Series and like maybe a Rolls Royce. Like maybe they took both designs and put them into one, and they just they just put blasphemy on it really because it looks terrible.
Oh, dude, that is so bad. Oh my lord. We're gonna move on from this thing, but
Brother,
still,
ooh.
brother. Dude, can I find that audio clip? Like, I wonder if I can, man. Like, hang on. Let me go. Let me go to YouTube because we'll find it there if we can find it anywhere. Brother. Ugh. Oh, dude, it says brother. Ugh. Like, let's see here. Was it Chef Ramsay or was it the guy who was like,
No, it was that Muslim fella.
oh, here we go, here we go.
Brother,
There you went. Yeah, man, that's the noise that car makes me want to make.
Ugh, brother. Moving on from that. And that car that was in that clip where they broke into a pig farm, it does appear that the Russians are losing their minds back there. Not only is gang violence happening in St. Petersburg, now the Russian soldiers are taking it upon themselves to free their comrades from indentured servitude on the pig farms. But meanwhile, we did get to hear that Ukraine has begun negotiations with Sweden to possibly get Gripens. Many people will remember that not too long ago, the Swedes actually said that the plan to give Ukraine Gripens was being put on hold indefinitely. But now it appears that the Ukrainians are once again revisiting the idea and trying to see if Sweden will be able to provide them with any Gripens going on into the future. As far as Ukraine is concerned, and as far as the world is concerned, the Gripen is not a bad option for Ukraine, requiring less training for the pilot and the ground crews. Well, not really for the pilot, but certainly for the ground crews. The Gripen is a lot more economical and a lot more efficient to operate, especially in the battlefield and the kind of environment that Ukraine is facing at the moment. The Ukrainians are, of course, trying to once again get themselves these aircraft, but it may be a little bit of a difficult and arduous task, because it seems as though they are slated in the Western world to get F-16s only at this moment, and possibly Mirage 2005Fs in the future. But a lot of people are saying that, a lot of people are wondering, has Ukraine given up on the F-16s arriving in any sizable numbers at any point in time in the near future? And a lot of people are saying that no, Ukraine just really wants more jets, and they want jets of any kind that have modern Western abilities. Others are saying that Ukraine is switching focus at the moment, and they're trying to actually move on to Gripens instead of F-16s, although the F-16s are supposed to be making it into Ukraine really soon. Others are saying that it's possible, but unlikely, in my opinion, or IMO. I always just read that as emo, and I'm like, what the hell is emo? And then I have to remember that it's in my opinion. And then some others are unsure and undecided. But a lot of people have been throwing out their opinions on this aircraft and the Ukrainian decision that has been made today. And Matthew, what are people saying, and what are you thinking?
All right, so the big question is, has Ukraine given up on the F-16 deliveries? And it looks like 62% of the audience, the majority here, says no, Ukraine simply wants more jets in addition to the F-16s that will be arriving very soon, while 20% said yes, Ukraine is switching focus from the F-16s to the Gripens out of frustration, and 9% said possibly but unlikely, emo, or in my opinion. And on this one, I would have to say that to me, it's probably just because Ukraine wants more jets. And that's probably smart because I wouldn't hedge all my bets on the F-16s, considering the West is only sending about 6 of them in what I view as a trial run of the jet. I would definitely be looking for Gripens as well, in addition to the F-16s, because you can't hurt going with both, in my opinion. That's sort of like a safeguard in case more F-16s are delayed in showing up, or for example, if they never show up and all they get is 6 of them, that assures Ukraine to have a backup to use in case the West kind of like waffles on that again. So I'm with the 62%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that in my humble opinion, the Ukrainians just want more jets. The Gripen is a lot cheaper and easier to maintain and operate from the airfields in Ukraine. They're also just simpler for the ground crews to work on, which it does sound as though ground crews have ended up becoming an issue for the F-16. These aircraft would just be quite suitable for a Ukrainian battlefield and a Ukrainian kind of a war environment. While it cannot do everything that the F-16 does, really the only drawback to this aircraft is that it can't carry the overwhelming amount of ordnance that an F-16 can. This aircraft can carry a little bit less, but it can technically do every other function that an F-16 would perform on the battlefield, but in a smaller, cheaper package and also easier to maintain, and also costs a lot less per flight hour overall. So I believe that the Ukrainians are just looking for more aircraft and possibly more economical aircraft to use in the long term, and that's why they're trying to once again revisit the idea of getting a Gripen and seeing this thing put into service with the Ukrainian Air Force at some point in the future. But still, it is something that I would have to say I would like to see Ukraine get Gripens, because right now we know they're getting the F-16, and then they're also getting this other aircraft, which was mentioned and then kind of thrown under the bus because no one's really brought it up ever again, but they're also going to be getting Mirage 2005Fs. A lot of people believe that they were going to be getting the 2000C. That is untrue. They're going to be getting the 2005F. And let me go and try and get y'all one. Here we go. This is a Hellenic Air Force Mirage 2005, which is pretty much an F. But still, this is a fairly competent aircraft as well. The Mirage 2000 does have access to use an AMRAAM of a sort. Theirs in France is actually called the Mika EM. It's somewhat similar in performance to an AIM 120 from what we know, so this aircraft in the air-to-air role would be able to do the same thing that the F-16 does. It also can do the same thing in an air-to-ground role that the F-16 does, but once again, the Mirage 2000 is limited by its payload, and it is not able to carry as large a payload of bombs and weaponry as the F-16 is able to, but it is still a fairly viable option for the Ukrainian Air Force, and we already do know that the French have offered these and will be sending these in the inevitable future. We just don't know exactly when at this moment. But I would still say Ukraine just wants jets of any kind and all kinds, and so the Gripen is probably an incredibly good option. As DCC Prime throws in a 350.
Dang!
Brother, damn! But still, that is wild. That is crazy. Thank you so much, DCC Prime, for throwing it in to revive Soldiers of Ukraine, because it is a massive help. I can't believe that this fundraiser is doing so well tonight. We've almost gotten to $4,000 raised in 50 minutes. Absolutely crazy. What a fundraiser tonight. But with that,
That's almost the record, I think. I think if it was like 10 minutes earlier, it would have been a record, but it's pretty close.
man, I got to tell you something, man. It is something impressive to see, and I love to see the Lee Spring Army supporting revived Soldiers of Ukraine so massively tonight, because Ukraine, of course, while it's 872 days in the war, they still need all the help they can get, and the Lee Spring Army continues to give them all of the help they need, and then some, as LSA Rocks throws into 220.
Oh,
Brother, damn! We just hit 4,000 flat. That is crazy. We just hit 4,000 right there. Nuts.
that's crazy. 4,000 flat. LSA Rocks, you know how happy that makes me? The OCD is calmed and settled now with an even 4,000 raised. I love the even numbers. Huge shout out.
I gotta say, man, that is crazy. And also, Christian Cruz said the Gripen can fire the AMRAAM. It can actually, and it can also fire the Swedish version of their version of an AMRAAM, which is, I believe, called the Darter, if I'm correct. Or the RB, I forgot what it is. I think it is the Darter, if I'm right. And let me go down to their air-to-air ordinance and let me go check. So much has been written about the Gripen on Wikipedia. It is actually a fan favorite out there in the aviation world. A lot of people love Gripens. This one is a little bit old, and it's a display aircraft, so that's why it looks kind of a little worn down and run out. But anyways, let's see, you can carry 6 Iris Ts. Yeah, it's actually darters. So they can carry AMRAAMs. It can actually carry Mikas. It can actually carry the French AMRAAMs that are provided with the Mirage 2000, or it can use the Meteor, which is a Swiss version of a AMRAAM as well. And then it can also carry the Darter. And the Darter, sorry, correction, everyone. The Darter is actually not a AMRAAM. It's actually a Fox 2, if I'm correct, which is the dogfighting missiles, what I call them. But still, really cool to see that they have these things and can use them. Isn't that cool? But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Very good point to bring up. The Gripen is very versatile in the kind of air-to-air weapons it can use. It can really use any of them. The Gripen is just such an amazing system. And I gotta say that I really do love what the Swedish do with their arms industry, because there was a vehicle today, Matthew, that I got introduced to, and I thought it was just one of the coolest looking vehicles that I had seen. And let me go see if I can find a picture of it. and let me go see if I can find a good picture of it, because it is used actually by the Danish armed forces. And when I saw it, I was like, that has got to be one of the coolest versions of a Swedish APC that I've ever seen. And it is this one right here. This is actually in use with the Swiss in this picture, but this is a CV9035, which is a variation of the Stridsford 9040 series.
That's not bad looking at all. I like the design. It looks very similar to the older designs, but I like it.
I really like it a lot, and I really like the 35mm autocannon that they have on it. Now there is a CV9030 that is used, I think, by the Finns and a couple of other countries. Here's the picture of the 9030 right there, with a different turret, different gun, and also some sort of an automated turret on top of that as well. And then all of these are based off of the basic 9040 series that pretty much underlies all of them. This is what the original 9040 looked like without any upgrades. This is what the modern day 9040s look like with armor modifications.
Now, the new one does look better on that one because now it looks nice and like sloped in the front, which in my opinion looks better. It looks a little bit more modern.
Man, I'll have to say, man, this was a massive improvement, adding that additional armor to the turret, because the original one, man, that looked pretty basic, I'm not going to lie. Adding all of that additional turret armor not only added a lot of crew survivability to this in some cases, but it also just made it look so much better. And so, I have to say, I'm honestly a big fan of the Swedish arms industry. I think they make some incredibly cool and interesting stuff. Really do add a lot of variety out there in the military world as far as equipment goes. So I'm a big fan of them. And of course, the Gripen is a great aircraft as well. But with that, I hope we address that the best we can. And it is time for us. It is time, Matthew, for us to move on into a little bit of information that we got today from the NATO General Secretary. And he said today that Poland will not shoot down missiles over Ukraine, and they never will. He said that that's never going to happen because they're not looking for any member of NATO to get directly involved in the war in any way, shape, or form, and that is that. And just left it at that and dropped it. And a lot of people have been saying whether or not they believe that this is a wise move or not. And a lot of people are saying that it's not, and Poland should help Ukraine out. Others are saying that Poland shouldn't get involved. Some people are saying that they're somewhat indifferent, and others are saying that they're unsure and undecided. But nevertheless, a lot of people have been weighing in on the statement made today by the NATO Secretary General or General Secretary, and a lot of people have been saying whether they agree with it or disagree with it. Matthew, what are people really thinking about that statement, and what are you thinking about it as well?
So on the news of NATO stepping in and telling Poland not to shoot down missiles over Ukraine, the big question is, like the enforcer said, is it a wise move? 60%, the majority, said no, Poland should help Ukraine out by hitting those missiles, while 22% said yes, Poland should not get involved by shooting the missiles, and at 9% said I'm somewhat indifferent. And on this one, if y'all will recall, we got a pretty clear statement from Poland about, I would say, 4 or 5 days ago, maybe a week ago or so, that Poland wanted to shoot down missiles that appeared to be heading toward their country while they were still in Ukrainian airspace. They were pretty bold in saying that, and it seemed to be a surefire deal. But now we're hearing that NATO has told Poland not to do that, and it sounds like Poland is actually backing off of it at NATO's behest. So it sounds like NATO is not happy about that proposal at all and sort of like told them not to do it. So to me, I think that I'm sort of like on the side of Poland should probably be able to shoot those missiles down, because if it looks like they're heading toward their country, why should Poland not be allowed to shoot them down? That's simple national defense. And if it's over the territory of Ukraine, that's just tough luck. Because they got to defend their country. So I'm with the 60%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'm with the 60% as well. Poland should help Ukraine out and help themselves out. If these missiles do appear that they're flying into Poland, and they do end up flying into Poland, I don't see any problem with the Polish taking the action themselves to shoot those missiles down. I would say that that's a wise decision by Poland. I would say that if the Russians have a problem with that, maybe they should figure out different flight plans where those missiles don't look as though they're going to be entering Polish airspace. If they don't want them shot down, they don't need to be posing a threat possibly to Western nations on our frontier. And so with that, I hope that does
also I would be curious to know what NATO did, because I assume that NATO didn't just say, hey, you don't do that, and Poland said, oh, okay, I'm so sorry. I have a feeling that Poland might have gotten threatened behind the scenes, and obviously that's speculation. We don't know that for certain, but I'd be curious to know what was the deciding factor for Poland to back off of it and say, hey, we're not going to do this after all, even though we boldly said in public that we were going to try to do this. Now they've totally backed off of it. So I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I'd be very curious to be a fly on the wall in some of these discussions at this point, because right now, a lot of allies, including Poland, are being told to de-escalate and calm down while they're trying to help out Ukraine. And, for these countries like Poland that are very involved in trying to help out Ukraine in the war effort, that seems really out of sorts and out of character with the way Poland's been operating. So there must be some pretty strong threats being thrown around behind the scenes.
I would have to say there probably is some sort of threats being thrown around the scenes. We've seen that de-escalation seems to be the name of the game lately, to the point that it's very strong. I would say very extreme forms of de-escalation, because we keep on seeing that no matter what, no one's allowed to do anything that may be taken offensively by the Russians, even if it is in the matter of their own defense. So I would have to say it probably has been threatened, because we did hear, like you were saying, Matthew, that they were all on board on doing this, and then all of a sudden they've been told by NATO they're not doing it, and then they don't. And I would have to say that that would, of course, have to follow with some sort of an actual followable threat, where they threatened some sort of action against Poland, and it was a viable action that could be taken, and so then they decided not to do anything that some powers that be in NATO would take as possible escalatory action. I would personally say that I have no problem with Poland shooting down the missiles. I don't think that that's a bad thing at all. In fact, I think it's quite a good thing, and once again showing a strong front by NATO that we will not tolerate Russian escalatory actions of any form, even if we have to escalate in turn. But of course, some people seem to have a difference of opinion on that currently in the form of governance, and they are allowing things to continue. But with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. And before we move on from that, Matthew, I understand that we have a lot of people who have done amazing things tonight. And we've, of course, been watching that unfold while we've been here live on air. And many of y'all will know what I'm talking about. We have raised $4,006 on this fundraiser tonight so far for Revive Soldiers of Ukraine. It has been unbelievable to see the overwhelming and overflowing support by the Lee Spring Army tonight in support of Revive Soldiers of Ukraine and helping Ukrainian soldiers to be able to walk again and do things that they, of course, did before they were almost nearly mortally wounded. And it is wonderful to know that so many people have united together, of course, in the Lee Spring Army, like we do every single Sunday, to be able to blow this fundraiser up and send it way over its fundraiser goal. There are a lot of people who were involved in that tonight, and we have to give a massive thanks to each and every one of y'all, whether your donation be big or small, because each and every one of y'all united together to make this amazing and incredible feat a reality again this Sunday, just like every Sunday in channel history has ever gone. And we want to make sure to, of course, give thanks to y'all individually. Unfortunately, before we do that, though, I do have to point out that we are not able to call out donations that are under $50. While those donations are incredibly numerous and boundless, and of course are half the reason why this fundraiser got to where it is, there are so many of y'all who throw in smaller donations that sadly, if we tried to call out all of y'all, we wouldn't really be able to physically do that. So we will be calling out the top donors, but before we do that, I want everyone to know with this fundraiser that we are wildly proud of the Lee Spring Army. We are so amazed that this fundraiser did so well already tonight, and we thank every single one of y'all for having hearts of gold and making sure to support Ukraine, both the big and small, all together to actually make a difference on the news that we cover each and every night. And so, Matthew, who are those top donors of the fundraiser so far?
All right, so we've got some extremely large donations that came in tonight. And also, before I get started reading off this list, huge shout out as well to the anonymous donors tonight that have thrown in a donation and did not include their name attached with it. Huge shout out to y'all, because apparently they didn't want any shout outs happening, but they threw in a massive amount of support as well, and huge shout out to everyone who did that. And also, starting off with our first one in the list, we have a $600 donation to the fundraiser from David Romano. He is number one, first place, for the largest one of the night. Huge shout out to David for that. We also have a $350 from DCC Prime 1, as well as a $220 from LSA Rocks, and a $200 donation from Purple Gerbil. Huge shout out to all three of y'all as well. And then we have a $100 donation from some guy called The Enforcer, as well as a $100 from John C., Zach G., Bilo, as well as Char G., Gene Kustra, Greg Carrier, Dev Mac G. And then we have a $100 from Just Chillin', as well as Don Sequitur. And then we have a $50 from William Cullison, Axel K, LSA Sergeant Figment, as well as Neil Vizanant, Cliff H, Mike Smith, and also Purple Gerbil once again. And a huge shout out to everybody tonight for donating once again, even if we were not able to call your name off. Huge shout out to everybody for getting us up to $4,006. and $6. The $6 on top of the 4,000. That's driving me crazy. It's driving me up the wall. But huge shout out, seriously speaking, to everyone tonight. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, once again, a massive thanks to y'all. It is incredible to know that this fundraiser is able to do what it does every single weekend. It has been every single Sunday since this channel has been allowed to conduct a Sunday fundraiser or a fundraiser at all. Well, actually, let me make sure to rephrase that that way I can get it out better. Since the beginning of this channel and the time that it was allowed by YouTube to be able to run a fundraiser, we have run a fundraiser every single Sunday night on this stream. Every single weekend except for one. And that reason why we didn't get to run it that weekend was because I was sick with the Wuhan
Whirlybird.
Yeah, the Wuhan Whirlybird. And so I wasn't able to really run a show that night because I had a fever of 103 that day specifically. So we couldn't really run one. But every single weekend beyond that, this fundraiser has run for a nonprofit of some sort out there somewhere that is doing amazing things in Ukraine. And it is unbelievable to think that every single weekend of every single day that we've run these fundraisers in the war, we've been able to surpass fundraiser goals by massive bounds. It is crazy to think that we've been able to do that time and time again, over and over and over. And tonight, of course, again, we reach an amazing level of $4,126. It's just truly unbelievable. And I have to thank y'all all so much once again for helping to make that possible, helping this fundraiser to do amazing things in Ukraine. Because it's one thing to be able to cover the news of what's going on in Ukraine. It's an entirely different thing, not only for us to do, but for y'all to have an impact on the very news that y'all are hearing about each and every night. And so a huge shout out to all of y'all once again. And also, Left Hand said, you call it the Wuhan Whirlybird again? I hope you feel better now. Actually, I called it once, and that was last year while I was in law school. Not in law school anymore, thank the Lord. And this was one of the things that actually turned me off of law school greatly, is that I got the Wuhan Whirlybird, got a fever of a 103 for about 3 straight days. That's why we were off air for an entire week, is because I was dying of the Wuhan Whirlybird. Now, I will say I wasn't dying, but it was incredibly rough. Like Matthew could tell you, the temperatures I was getting back on the thermometer were insanely high. I mean, they were getting close to like 105. Sometimes like 100.
It was a rough time.
Yeah, it was 100. I think the highest temperature I had was 103.5 one time for a couple of hours during that stint. And so the law school said, and I got to vent this because this always aggravates me whenever I think back about that, because it was the most infuriating thing. The law school said that I was going to, that if you get the Wuhan Whirlybird, you have to quarantine so that way you don't show up and get other people sick. And so I do that, and then I'm told that apparently those absences are not going to be excused, although I clearly have the Wuhan Whirlybird. And I took a test, and the test came back positive, saying I had Wuhan Whirlybird. So I had to end up calling up the assistant dean, which, considering that we're not at law school anymore, and I don't really have to worry about pissing anyone off in the legal industry, this person, by my own objective critique, was an asshole. I called them up and talked to them about the absence policy, and of course said, well, your guidelines say I have to quarantine, but at the same time, it's also saying in another part that no absences will be excused whatsoever. And so they decided to be an asshole with me. So then I asked him, okay, well, if you're not going to excuse the absences, I guess you're fine with me showing up to your office and having a meeting with you tomorrow while I'm still in a fever and contagious with Wuhan Whirlybird. Well, I wouldn't really want that, is what they said. And I said, okay, so why in the world will you not excuse the absence then? Because I will show up tomorrow and talk to you in person, you know, no mask and everything, so that way we can make sure to be on the same page about this, and maybe you'll have the same affliction I have, and then we'll see if you miss work or not. And so then I ended up staying out anyways, but that was incredibly aggravating to me, and that was something where I realized maybe the legal profession isn't for me, if people are going to be like that to the point of being completely unreasonable and not having any common sense. So that was one of the big turning moments where Matthew and me were both like, you know, maybe this isn't cut out for us with this kind of stupidity involved. But beyond that, I would have to say that beyond that one instance where I went on that whole rabbit hole telling y'all that story again, we have run a fundraiser and it has always done incredible. And I got to give a huge shout out and a huge thanks to y'all for making this channel possible, helping it to keep on running, and not only that, helping out these fundraisers so massively, so that way not only does this channel exist every week, but at every single end of every single streaming week, we get to do amazing feats and triumphs like this. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And Matthew, I also understand that we have a couple of interesting questions to answer. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, and also real quick, I just had to say this. Someone in the live chat I've never seen before said this dude's voice sounds just like Bob Menery. Man, I don't know when you've listened to Bob Menery or us or the Enforcer or anybody. We sound nothing like that guy. Nothing at all like that guy. Not even close. But anyways, we also have 2 more donations that came in. The first one is from John J, who put in a $100 donation. And then Randy Tosho just put in a 50, along with James Roberts, who also put in a 50 as well, bringing us up to $4,250, which is about $1,249 above goal. So tremendous to see, and huge shout out to everybody for that. But jumping into our first question of the night, it's actually not a question, it's the Morse code decoders of the night. Tonight we had Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Rumpelstiltskin, and David Millsaps. They said the Morse for tonight says, Russia's second biggest city is devolving into lawlessness, and long live the LSA, and good evening to you both. And good evening to y'all as well.
And good evening. And that is the sound of money, and y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message, and I got to congratulate y'all once again for getting that dead on the nail and having that absolutely correct. That is wild to think that y'all get that right every single night, and it's still crazy to know that y'all are getting that right. Huge shout out to y'all. Huge commendation for y'all's skill on doing that. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And also, let's see. Dude, I was like, why'd you ban him? And then I looked at that, I was like, that's a weird question. But anyways,
they were coming in with the roasts. Oh, look, here's another one coming in. Look, you see that?
Oh
that
yeah,
bot?
I see that. Look at that, man. The bots are coming in heavy tonight. Dang.
And also, by the way, speaking of bots, I've been seeing on Twitter that many of the viewers have been getting their bot begone shirts, and I'm seeing y'all share those photos around. I actually put a like on a couple of them that I saw today, and also left a comment on them as well, because we love to see the merch actually like in the flesh, in real life. Super cool to see, and huge shout out to everybody who's sharing photos of that, because I greatly appreciate it, and I love seeing them. But anyways, jumping into our next question here, and also another PSA as well. If y'all have a question tonight, no super chats, but at Enforcer Matt in the live chat with your question behind it, and we can add it to our spreadsheet. And the first one here goes to Gold, who says, if Tucker Carlson would like to do an interview with y'all about Ukraine, would you accept?
Me personally, that's a good question, actually, because generally our general approach throughout most of the channel's history has been if any news organization ever wanted to interview us, we would most likely decline, because most news organizations, unlike us, are fairly disingenuous, so they would get us on and then they would try and paint us in a bad light or something, because usually nowadays, with how people do news, no one ever wants to just hear out someone's points, and they want to make someone look like a clown, because that's a good way to get ratings. So generally, my answer to that would be no. But considering that we're kind of moving into a category these days where a lot of people are starting to say that we're not only just news reporters on this, we're kind of leading voices in this sphere a little bit, especially with how I lay things out, with how Western influence works, what the big picture in the long term would look like. I would have to consider it. I can't say that it would be a hard no or it would be a definite yes. I would have to consider that a little bit. I would of course have to make sure that a couple of things are laid out in writing in advance. For example, and this is why we would have to get it in writing, so that way later, if something was done against what we were told, we could of course just post an email in writing showing that these things were promised about how the interview was going to go, so that way y'all could see that this person was disingenuous and lying, which would be a good thing to of course represent if that was the case. But I would have to say, I'm a little bit on the fence. I might accept it. It depends on what we could get in writing that would be guaranteed. Like, for example, if we were asked questions and it was like the Putin interview where we were able to say whatever we want for however long we wanted and none of it was edited at all and published in its raw form, I would be perfectly fine with that. And a lot of people are saying, no, he's, I wouldn't do that because he's anti-Ukraine. That's why I would actually do it, because I don't really find a lot wrong with speaking with opposing voices. I mean, if we were asked a political question, I would just deny to answer it. It's not like you can just force me to answer a political question. So if you said, well, what do you think about this? And it was a domestic political thing, I'd be like, we just don't address that. I'm sorry. Like, we don't have an opinion, and if, well, sure, you have an opinion, but yeah, but we're not sharing it here, and we're not sharing it off camera either. That's just what we do. But if you want to ask questions about Ukraine, like, why do we support Ukraine? Why is Ukraine worthwhile to support? I'd be more than happy to explain that. It doesn't matter whether the guy tries to grill us or not, because our points are ironclad enough, in my opinion, for sure, especially with the way I lay them out, that there isn't really a way that you can look at that and say that there's inherent flaws and break it down and make it look stupid. You could disagree with it and you could present a different option, but there's no way to make my argument look stupid. It's a fairly strong argument. It doesn't really exist on a humanitarian level, which is usually one of the big arguments that is had against the Ukraine war. There is a humanitarian side to things, but I have a more pragmatic view of the war and a more Western sphere-oriented approach to how the war in Ukraine is fought and done. So I would have to say, really, I wouldn't find anything wrong with getting an interview with Tucker Carlson at this point, or really anyone for that matter, as long as we were able to guarantee that certain requirements about the interview were put forward in writing beforehand, so that way if there was some kind of clever editing done to try and make us look like fools or make us look like we were stumped, we would be able to disprove that by showing what was in writing beforehand. And also we would have to make sure that we had a camera present that was filming as well, that had raw unedited footage, so that way we could post the same thing on our end, so that way if it was edited, y'all could see that it was edited. So
me personally, I would probably say no, because in reality, if you really think about it, what reason would Carlson have for inviting us on his show? Because it's not like we're like military experts or something like that. So that's not the reason to put us on the show. And it's like Carlson would basically be inviting a competitor on there, because like routinely, like nightly, we're close neck and neck with Tucker Carlson on YouTube. Like, yeah, we're actually beating him many nights. So why would you want to invite your competitor on your show to give them airtime and publicity? You wouldn't want to do that. So the only reason he'd want to invite you on is to try to skewer you over your opinion on Ukraine. So I would say that if he said he wanted to do an interview, I would say we could talk off air if you want to just have a person-to-person talk. But we're not going to do anything where it's like a piece of theater work or something like that. We're just going to talk like humans, but no interview, I'd probably say.
I mean, generally, I'll say this because Matthew's got a good point, and that actually would be my knee-jerk answer. But considering that we are starting to move a little bit, and we do have to remember this, Matthew, this is a really weird thing. We are starting to move from being a significant channel, but kind of a smaller one in the sphere, to I think that we're one of the largest ones at this point. I think there's only a few others that are bigger than this channel at the moment. So we are starting to become, at least in the YouTube sphere, a leading voice on the war. And I would be honest, I think we're the ones who put out the best argument in support of the war. So if anyone was to talk about it in interviews with anyone else, to flesh out an idea of why we support Ukraine or why anyone would support Ukraine, I would say it probably would be us, in my opinion, not to, toot our own whistle or blow our own horn here or anything.
Maybe so. It's just, to me, I think the way Carlson views things is he would not look at us as like a leading voice on anything, because in the mainstream media world, unless you have like corporate backing or you have like big investors or you're like out there on your own network, they look at you like you're poo-poo. Like they don't put much value in like just solely YouTubers, I don't think, or at least that's the way I see it. So, that's probably a foolish way to look at it, because obviously if we're beating him on the numbers, that says a lot. But I just don't think they would get past that in their head, because Tucker clearly has a very like glorified image of himself in his head, and he's not going to let that go.
Yeah, that's true. And also that laugh gives away a lot. That that kind of laugh gives away plenty. But with that, let's see. And word guy said go with Ben Shapiro. Ooh. Yikes.
I couldn't handle that, man. I couldn't handle it.
No, I couldn't. No, I'm sorry. I'll put that out.
Yes. Yes. Can you slow down, man? Please slow down. Yes. Yes.
I'll put that out there. And of course, when I speak about this person, of course, Ben Shapiro is a very political person. Many of y'all know. Man, I'm going to speak about him on just my opinion. I don't actually think Ben Shapiro is that good of a debater. That's my personal opinion, because the way he debates, it's not really an actual debate of points, talking points. It's more so of a debate of how quickly can he talk and how quickly can he try to shut you down, sometimes by interrupting, which I find very rude and very counterproductive in a debate. So I wouldn't really want to debate or get an interview with Ben Shapiro. You know, nothing against him personally. I just don't really like the way he does his interviews or ask questions. I find it to be fairly abrasive. It doesn't really allow for a frank or a candid discussion from both sides. It really is more so a spit roasting or an attempt at a spit roast every single time that happens. Like, you know,
And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Like when people like intentionally like invite people on their show or their podcast or something in bad faith, knowing they're going to get them on there and roast them. I don't care like if it's politics, if it's about Ukraine, if it's about foreign politics or whatever. It's like, you know, that's not really being genuine or having a legit conversation if you're going to invite someone on to start, you know, running them through the ringer. I just don't like that. I don't put any stock in it. Those people are basically just rage baiters, and it works really well for most of them. Is they get a lot of clicks, which you know it lines their pockets. But in reality, if you're trying to actually have a real conversation, that's just not it. And it's really, in my opinion, a waste of time to ever entertain that. Because unless you're like a neutral party, like you know, like let's say Walter Cronkite, and that was a long time ago, then you're not going to have a real conversation at all.
Yeah, and I actually just saw Ian Hansen say, "Tell them you want Walter Cronkite." LOL. If we really would want Walter Cronkite, we would want someone like that to interview. And that's actually, speaking of which, I'm going to tell you all about something I floated around in the background today, just as an idea, because of course many of y'all will know that on the wake of the assassination attempt that happened yesterday, everyone in America right now is talking about how the political tensions in America on all ends need to die down. Aggressive or violent rhetoric needs to be tempered or curtailed completely, and a more balanced approach to the political world needs, or more an objective approach. That's really the best wordage for it. Should start to prevail in America again. Many of y'all have been hearing the call for that, and I was actually talking to Matthew today, and I was saying, you know, what if we made a second channel? It wouldn't be on this main channel, but a second channel where we actually got to talk about American political issues, but instead of editorializing like everyone does now, like CNN and Fox does, where they put out their specific political opinions, we make that channel as objective as possible, using the most neutral wordage for every single situation. If both sides' opinions on a single topic are talked about, we would point out the positives and the negatives of both opinions, one after the other, or both mindsets one after the other, and we would try and present an extremely objective and neutral approach to American politics, so that way it still remained within the Lee Spring Army's framework of not having an official political opinion, but at the same time talking about some of the most important topics here in the United States that everyone likes to talk about, and then informing y'all or giving y'all the information y'all would need about both sides to then make your own collective decisions and then have interesting discussions off air, you know, with each other. I would find that to be a fairly interesting concept to try and implement. It's something, though, that we're not going to do here soon. That most likely would be coming, I'll be entirely honest with y'all, maybe in a year, maybe in a year and a half. And I saw David Robinson say, "I don't come here for politics." And that's absolutely right. Our channel is not a political channel, and we are never going to turn the official Enforcer channel into anything political where political opinions are aired. And even a second channel that did talk about political subjects here in America would never weigh in on what side is better or what side is worse, or come out in open support or open condemnation of one or the other. We would never do that, because that's just simply the way news is not supposed to be. That is called editorializing, and editorializing is not journalism. And so I hope that it gives y'all an idea. If y'all would find that interesting, let me know. I mean, that would be kind of interesting. Defender Marcia LSA said, "I won't join that other channel. I need politics-free spaces." And this is one of the few on the internet. But I would have to say, I would find that interesting. I think a lot of people are tired. Like many of y'all are tired of politics, and I think it's because no one goes about it in an objective, neutral form anymore. That's something that kind of died back in the 70s, and I would like to see if we could revisit that kind of an idea of news coverage. And then bring it about for a modern audience. I think it would be wildly successful, to be quite honest, because there's many people out there just like y'all who would actually like to hear it in a very neutral form and in a very concise and clean way, where there wasn't an actual objective or more so like a motive or a narrative being put out. It was just everything there was. Here it is. We're making it as objective and neutral as possible. There you go. That's what I was thinking. Maybe an interesting idea, maybe not. I'm seeing a lot of y'all are actually not a big fan of that idea, and me personally, I can't disagree with that. I'm not really a big fan of politics. I generally avoid it. Even in my own personal life, I generally avoid it. And really, there's so many.
It's just there's like you're about to say, there's so many people out there that already cover politics. Like literally, the mainstream news went from being somewhat, objective and covering stories that were actually news, and then now they've turned into like purely political commentary channels. And there's two main ones, and it's one side going against the other every single day, like on a record, like on repeat. And that will get people extremely sick and tired of that stuff really fast. But I think I know what you're saying, Enforcer. You're saying something that's so different that it doesn't even compare to the current options out there. But I don't know. Like it's hard because anytime you discuss politics, even in an unbiased way, it starts fights. Like I didn't think it would. Like at the beginning of the stream, that when we started this, I didn't think it would personally. I was like, oh no, people will discuss it perfectly fine. But then I saw once something was mentioned, even in a non-political way, the chat went off the rails. People started fighting and people started leaving. I was like, oh, that's not good. That's not what I expected either. So. We might have to think twice about it.
Yeah, that's something that is true. And also, some of y'all are wondering how in the world would we cover it? Because it's so foreign in the modern American world now. I don't think a lot of people understand what I'm saying. And what here, let me give y'all like an idea of how like that kind of a news video would go about. It would be something along the lines of currently in the United States, a lot of people believe that this specific political topic is one of important discussion, and one that is currently dividing the nation on their opinions on how it should be approached. One side says that this should be what is implemented. There are some positives to this kind of approach because of A, B, and C, but at the same time, there are some drawbacks due to A, B, and C. However, on the other side believes that it should be implemented because they believe that the benefits of A, B, and C will be positive and will produce a good result. However, there are some drawbacks to their side, as they will also be creating A, B, and C. Of course, this seems to be dividing the American public, and we currently believe that in the Congress, this will most likely not pass due to these reasons. Moving on from that, and then do it like that, and we could just make videos like that where it actually covers the news, but it covers it in such a neutral and objective way that y'all don't know our opinions on the topics, which is not the matter of news. You're never supposed to know the reporters' personal opinions on a matter, especially with how they're covering it. And also on top of that, it allows y'all to actually get the news in a neutral and processable way that isn't too emotionally charged. It isn't overwhelming. It just gets to the news. And so maybe we'll do that someday. It's not anytime soon if we ever did. And to be quite honest, it seems like a lot of y'all wouldn't want to see that. And me personally, I can't disagree with that. But I thought I'd throw the idea out to y'all to see if y'all would be interested in some kind of a neutral kind of approach to modern American political news. But it seems as though many people would not be a big fan of that. But with that, we are on to the next question.
All right, and also real quick, huge shout out to Autocross101 who threw in a $200 donation, and also Dad Good that threw in a $50 donation. Huge shout out to both of you for that. And also, we see that we're up to $4,669 on the fundraiser.
Hey!
Nice. I love to see it. And also, moving on from that and thanking those two top donors right there, we have one more question. And this one goes to Barry Woodward, who says, where are our future Orc Mate Chinese troops located?
Right now, we don't know where they are. I believe the announcement today was just that they're going to be starting the beginning of military drills. I don't believe that they have begun, and I believe that they're going to be beginning here in the future. If I had to assume, they're most likely going to be in the area of eastern Russia, or they may be held within a neutral ground like Mongolia, or it may be within Russia itself. I'm not entirely sure. But at the moment, all we know is that there will be joint military drills in the future. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And also, really quickly, let's see. I'm seeing a lot of people, a load of people. I want to make sure to address this again. A lot of people are saying that they are not a big fan of a political channel, like an Enforcer offshoot channel that covers political topics on a neutral political stance. I want to reiterate this very quickly. That is not something that was planned to happen. We weren't announcing that channel tonight. We kind of just threw that out as an idea today, especially considering how charged the modern environment is. A neutral voice, a neutral and objective voice like that in news coverage, whether it be on mainstream television or here on YouTube, I felt may be very conducive to ensuring the social order here in the United States and ensuring neutral and positive discussions on political topics. It's not necessarily about trying to create another political voice out there like so many of y'all have talked about tonight. Apparently there's another Ukraine war channel that's going off the rails with their own personal opinions on politics, which we've heard about so much tonight. And of course it's important
Oh, it's a disaster.
Oh yeah, I know. It's important to think that people take their positions like our position where we cover the news for y'all and tell y'all what's going on out there in the world, and then they try and use that to editorialize and then push their own political objectives onto other people, even if they don't want them or not. We would never do that to y'all. And considering that all of y'all are not a big fan of even hearing about an objective or a neutral channel that would cover that kind of a topic, we wouldn't do that either. If y'all wanted to hear that one day, and y'all would be interested in an offshoot channel like that, we would start to make a news network that not only covered world news like we currently do, but also covered domestic news, but in a very objective and neutral form. And so
one thing's for certain, though, we can never do that while the Ukraine war is going on, because we want to make sure we keep the whole Ukraine community cohesive here. Because I think, Enforcer, you had the best idea on that. Because in the beginning, like I said, I thought politics was something we could all discuss, but I quickly saw that was not the case. And we've kept it non-political ever since. I know you're talking about a separate channel, but we'd still be basically sort of like, associating it with this one in some way indirectly, and it would kind of spill over. Even if we were being objective, people would be saying, the way he sounded when he said that, his tone indicated he leans this way or that way. It's like people would be taking guesses and it would go sideways. Sadly, I think it's probably a good idea, but it's probably not going to be implemented very well just because of, everything happening right now.
Yeah, that's true. And also, I see a lot of people saying a history channel would actually be really cool, which is actually the plan. If the Ukraine war starts to fizzle, well, it will eventually fizzle out, and we're hoping that it will be sooner rather than later. This main channel will probably start to move into a history channel for the large part, or kind of a current events channel, still covering world news, but it will be touching on a wide variety of topics. That is something that we already have planned in future, but we are thinking of different ways of spanning our channel out. Not only to cover this specific topic, but also to reach wider and broader audiences and give them the kind of flavor of news coverage that a lot of y'all enjoy right here, but in various different topics. That is something that we've been thinking about and wanting to try and do, but it seems as though many people, and I have to say, I'm largely a fan of this as well. I just wanted to throw out the idea to y'all. Are not a big fan of a American domestic news channel or American domestic political news channel, even if it would be neutral and objective from the very outset, and continue on with that idea through the long run. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on, I believe, to the final question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the Ukraine war news.
And that was actually our last question right there with Barry Woodward.
Oh, and with that, we are now moving on into our location unknowns, where we got to see a Ukrainian crew conducting some maintenance on their T-64BV, lifting up the engine bay, lifting up the hood of the engine bay, and then working on the internals of the tank. Really interesting to see. We very rarely see that, and this does appear to be some kind of a frontline maintenance, as they don't have a large amount of heavy machinery involved in this or any kind of larger crane works, but still really cool to see. And I gotta say, that is really, really interesting to know. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see the Russians getting hit by an FPV drone. We don't know where this was or when, but the video just came out today. And so here's the clip. We see him looking out. We can hear the drone kind of out there somewhere. And it's really quiet at the moment. Oh. We hear it's still out.
That's not the sound of a lawnmower. That's the sound of something else.
Oh.
Oh, dear.
Oh!
Oh, my God. Man, that was like a jump scare. I didn't expect it to hit right there.
Man, yikes, that was rough. But moving on from that and into the next clip, we also got to see a brand new Ukrainian drone being tested. This thing is called the Bullet, and it looks like it's some kind of a modified, like professional RC aircraft, but it is incredibly fast. Here's the clip.
Oh, it's got a real jet.
Yeah, that's just pretty crazy.
Man, this thing's like a BMW. It's got every warning light in the country online inside that thing.
Man, I'm telling you.
Oh, that's sick.
That is really cool, man. I'm not gonna lie. Dude, the German RC plane enthusiasts are frothing at the mouth for this one. Overspeed. Low RSSI.
I'm not gonna lie though, like it doesn't look like it's going that fast. Not as fast as I was expecting.
I don't think they're ramping it up to full speed, really. I'm not gonna lie. And now they're landing it. Oh, that looks like a hard landing.
Oh, not butter. That's a good try.
Man, it's got flaps and everything. That's actually a really impressive drone. Really, really cool. I like that. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip and on into our last bit of Location Unknown news, where we got to see the Russian casualty report in great googly moogly that they be juicy.
They brought out 10 Bobcats, I'm telling you what. I see that person over there in the comments. They said, this is unsustainable for the Russians. I would have to agree. Also, look, I think that might be one of our viewers right there. They said, what category does motorcycles and ATVs fall under?
Why, that would be probably vehicles and fuel tanks, if I had to take a guess. I think that's what that would be, Mike. Very good question. And with that, the losses in that category were actually quite high today, with 1,320 Russian soldiers wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 32 APCs destroyed, 77 fuel trucks knocked out, 7 main battle tanks destroyed, not main battle trucks, 46 artillery pieces, 39 drones, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, and 10 Bombcat skid steers. All in all, today was a very impressive day, and we love to see that they were able to inflict these kinds of losses on the Russian Federation once again, as it means that the Russians, if they are making any progress anywhere, which they really aren't, they are taking wildly high losses. Moving on from that and into the area around Lipsy, we got to see the 36th Marine Brigade in the area intercepting an Orlan drone. Really quickly, just to point this out to y'all, we will be seeing the 36th Brigade today in 2 different places. In the area around Vovchansk, as we are seeing right now, and down near Kherson. Currently, the 36th Brigade has deployments in both locations. Some of the brigade is currently inside of the area around Vovchansk, and most of it is currently still within the Kherson River region area. And we see them lining up the manpad here. It's a AIM-92 Stinger, or a FIM-92 Stinger. And they're now firing. The backblast on that thing was huge, and yeah, they got it.
Oh
yeah,
boy, look at that. It's an Orlan.
Man, I'm telling you what, beautiful stuff. Love to see it. And with that, we also got to see the Russians near Lukyansk decided that they should stand still and not move, because the Ukrainians are like dinosaurs. If you don't move, they can't see you. That didn't actually work for them, but I'll show you all the clip nevertheless. There they are. If we don't move, they can't see us, Blade. It sees them. We see them. This didn't work out for them.
Man, you spoiled the whole clip.
And we see the drone flying right over him, hovering, and getting ready to line up that bomblet. And there it goes. Oh!
Oh, dear. Aye.
Tough times for these guys. Standing still was not a good strat.
Aye.
Oh! Yikes.
Move on.
Oh! And with that, we're now moving on from the area of Lukyansk and over to Vovchansk, where we got to see the Russians speaking on some of the losses that they're taking in this area. And I'll be reading
look at
this.
that face. Look at that face.
That's the face of a winning country.
No.
That's the face of a winning nation, Matthew. But here is the clip. Dear loved ones, those who are in touch and asking about their fighters, their husbands, fathers, and sons. We managed to get out as a group of 30 people. The 138th Brigade Assault Detachment, not everyone made it out. A lot, out of 46, I led 30 people out.
Из 46 30 человек я вывел. Братья многие...
Many brothers have fallen. 200s, 300s. I'm 300 myself, meaning that he's wounded.
Простите.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. To those I couldn't save.
Выбрались еще не все.
Not everyone has made it out yet. I'm still pulling people out. And that's the end of the clip, but it seems as though things are, of course, still going poorly up in the Vovchansk front as these poorly experienced Russian forces that have been rushed into the area are continuing to sustain very high losses against Ukrainian defensive and counteroffensive efforts. Moving on from that, and within the area of the northeast, we got to see the Ukrainians using a very interesting Swedish RBS-17 anti-ship missile launcher to rig up and fire an AGM-114 Hellfire, which is usually fired from a helicopter. But in this instance, we got to see it being fired from this jimmy-rigged kind of a construction. Also, let me make sure that audio's up, and there we go. I don't think he expected that. Like, I don't think he expected the rocket's red glare in the background being that big. Look at this.
Damn.
He was a little too close, in my personal opinion. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see some Ukrainian tanks moving along a tree line in the northeastern area as well. Slava Ukraini, nasha nechrom traba. And also, NATO Stoltenberg urges members to allow Ukraine to strike targets deep inside of Russia. And some people are wondering, will it happen? And a lot of people are saying that it'll happen soon. Some people are saying it'll take time. Some people are saying that no, Ukraine will not give that permission. And some are unsure and undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking about it? And what are you thinking about it as well?
So it looks like 55% said yes, the West will give Ukraine permission soon to strike deep inside of Russia with Western weapons, while 27% said it'll take time and eventually they'll get permission, and 10% said no, Ukraine will simply not get that permission that they're looking for. And on this one, honestly, I'm with the 27%. I think it's going to take a long time before the West turns around and changes their mind on this. And it's definitely not going to be immediate because there's been some very strong words being given out to allies about not giving Ukraine permission to strike inside of Russia. And it seems to be the West is very dead set on not allowing it, at least for now. So I'm with the 27%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I'm with the 27% as well. I believe it will take time. It does appear that the United States is not a big fan of allowing their weapons to be used deep inside of Russia. And so for that reason, I do believe that that will be taking still a considerable amount of time until that approval is given. But we were able to see that according to another video that we got near to the Kremena Forest, a group of Brazilian soldiers almost got stricken by a Russian drone, and it was caught on film.
Caralho! Filha da puta!
Man, they're crazy.
Man, they really crazy.
Caralho, mano!
Man, they crazy, dude. I even want to go up against
They're
them.
laughing, screaming, and having a great time while they're getting smashed with a bomb.
Dude, they screamed though, kind of like one of them screamed like a girl a little bit, dude. Like the Trump love. He went. I was like, dude, that's interesting. That's how Hot Dog Man screams. By the way, I'm just wondering, like, I don't mean to put too much time into this, but where's that hit video I was promised yesterday? I was promised a hit video.
Waiter, where's the hit piece?
Another hit piece, please. Like, it's a little late. I was told it was going to be out today. I want one. Put it out. I want to see my channel.
Don't rush me. I'm barely able to work 2 hours a day. Don't rush me.
This time I'm really going to do it. This 50th video I've made is a hit piece. It's really going to get him this time. I'm really going to get him.
I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of getting pissed off. Like, I want my hit pieces now. I'm not trying to wait till next week. I want the hit piece to come out right now, like tomorrow. It's like, can we get it like sooner than later? It's like, come on.
Man, like, I'm telling you this, that son of a bitch promised me a hit piece today, and I want one today. I want it now. Like, wake your ass up.
I'll throw on something at least.
Yeah, you wake your ass up and get to making that damn video. Because I didn't sit here. I didn't sit here and wait for some absolute comedy to not come out today. I got to see that happen. So we got to have.
You'll
that
do what you're told.
Yeah, like they will do it, they're told, and I'm gonna get that damn hip piece. I mean, I'm gonna get that hip piece just like there's that giant missing hole in the scalp. Like, it will be there. Like, it's going to be there. But moving on from that and down into the area of the southern Bakhmut front, we did get to see the Griffin unit dropping some AT mines on the Russian positions. These are, of course, the TM-62 anti-tank mines that everyone knows about. But here goes the drone carrying the mine. I was about to drop it here in a second. And we can now see the camera view of that drone. And any second now is going to blow up.
I see we got Hot Dog Warrior in here. He said, "Don't rush me. I had a bad burrito." Oh, man, listen. I'm the only one who gets the Chipotle pass, not you. Hot Dog Man's got to work through it. He doesn't get any breaks. He doesn't work hard enough to get a break, man. Get back to work.
Listen, his stomach can't be upset. He's eating the finest Ukrainian food and drinking the finest Ukrainian beer as he goes bar hopping around Kyiv acting like a hero of the nation. He should be able to make that video, and it should have come out today. But of course, he never follows through on any promise he makes, even if it's a stupid one. But moving on from that and into the area of Toretsk, we did get to see some damage being caused, of course, as battles are raging nearby. And we're going to be muting that, but we can see the damage to the city of Toretsk. We see them here showing the damage still to the city. Of course, very unfortunate to see. And with that, that's the end of the clip. But of course, showing the ongoing battles around the area. Meanwhile, a little bit further behind the lines, we did get to see the Russians filming a destroyed Grad. This actually is on the wrong side of the border, and let me move that right over there really quickly. And so here's the clip of them looking at their destroyed Grad. The launcher appears to have been completely obliterated, as it's no longer present on the vehicle. But we can see the tubes that made up the MLRS launcher. People are asking, who is Hot Dog Man? And if you look around, you'll find him because he admitted he's the Hot Dog Man. So if you just look around for a Hot Dog Man, you'll probably find him. But probably one of the most deplorable people out there, even in just the Ukraine war world, really out there in the world as a whole. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see some Ukrainian troops patrolling through a heavily damaged village near to the front line around Avdiivka. And of course, showing off the damage once again. Many Ukrainian families used to call this village home, but now it's completely empty and close or really part of an active war zone. Oh, man.
I saw someone describe it as Hot Dog Man is a rival channel that went berserk. Big emphasis on the berserk part.
Yeah. And also, I would not really put a lot of emphasis on the rival part because the guy was such a small and insignificant channel from the start. He never really was a rival per se at any point, especially now. But
that dude was begging to come on our channel, like literally begging behind the scenes. Like he was groveling to get on our channel, and eventually he acted stupid or something. And we said, no, we're going to pass, but thanks anyway, like just being kind and polite like we always are with everybody at first. And of course, he didn't like being rejected, so he went off the rails, went berserk. And here we are, about a year and a half later, and he's still, once again, still harassing us and going crazy. So big emphasis on the berserk part, but the rival part, I agree with the Enforcer. Never a rival, but he's always been lurking around somewhere doing, some small things here and there.
Now, how it really went down is that the stupid guy started to make a beef with us out of nowhere years ago, literally like 2 years ago. We let it slide for a while, and then I eventually reached out to the guy over email to try and put out an olive branch. We put out an olive branch. Then I tried to message the guy on Discord to invite him on our show for the year's anniversary of the war in Ukraine. The guy never responded to me. until we had already filled up all the slots that we had with other people. And then finally, after we announced it live on air that we were going to be having a special 1-year anniversary show with multiple guests from different YouTube channels, then he decided to respond to my reaching out to him that he didn't even respond to for an entire month or so, and then he wanted to act like he was a victim afterwards, and then start blasting us from there to all time, calling us scammers and crappy people. But what's funny is that he calls everyone he doesn't like a scammer and a grifter and a crappy person. So it's like if you use the same attacks on everyone, you end up crying wolf enough times. It's not even credible anymore. It's not even worth going to that much anymore. But yeah, the guy is absolutely insane. Truly a lunatic. And in speaking of something that a lot of people don't know, this guy has doxed us multiple times. He has shown where we live. He tells people to try and harass us in person over the internet. They tracked down where we went to law school. They had people trying to call in fake accusations against us, trying to have us swatted in the middle of law school, all kinds of crazy stuff. So anyways, getting back to the news, we can see them showing off a Bradley that survived 8 hits yesterday. And we can see them showing off the battle damage that the Bradley sustained, and it did incredibly well. Of course, with the brought armor additions, it was very beefed up in comparison to the attacks that were being conducted against it, but it survived incredibly well. And we see them showing off the damage to the barrel. We can actually see that there's some shrapnel damage to the 25mm barrel on this Bushmaster. Really crazy. Also, it's crazy to think that this is a Bushmaster gun on this Bradley. Like, you know, like I associate Bushmaster with like defunct ARs, you know, but it's an actual brand of 25mm autocannon. But moving on from that and into our next clips further down the line in near Novomikhailivka, we got to see Ukrainian APC unloading on some Russians. And I mean unloading. Here's the clip. I'm going to be muting that, but there's the BTR-3 unloading on some poor Russians downrange. The video had some lag in it right there. That wasn't on our end. That was their end. And this video is really laggy for some reason, but that was the end of the clip. Really cool to see Ukrainian APC. Huh? Slow. And moving on from that, we also got to see some Russian losses from around the town of Novomikhailivka. The losses keep mounting. And we're seeing that the house, as we called it, or the turtle tank, has now disappeared. And we're now seeing a whole bunch of other wacky inventions of the Russians as they try and make a more usable form of tank on the battlefield. Doesn't seem as though they perfected that because the losses just keep building up around Novomikhailivka in particular. It looks as though they're still learning, and they're still trying. But the losses are insane. They truly are. But with that...
Look at this. Man, these losses are so much, I'm trying to take it in, and it just finally soaked in. I was like, man, these losses are bad.
Man, they are really bad. And moving on from those bad losses, we also got to see that the drone threat from Ukraine is so bad for the Russians that they're starting to put cope cages over checkpoints and then put the checkpoints under bridges. So that way it's that much harder for a Ukrainian FPV drone to strike a checkpoint and destroy it. Pretty funny, I'm not gonna lie, actually. And moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see that on the left bank of the Dnipro River, a Ukrainian aviation bomb hit a Russian military location on that side of the river, right there. Bada boom, baby, bada boom. And I mean, they're just slamming them with these aviation bombs, as opposed to other kinds of bombs. Dang, man, you slamming them with that sneeze. You went, yeah. I was like, dang. Yeah, I give them that. But moving on from that, we also got to see that it's time for Kherson watermelons. That must be why Hot Dog Man took that paid vacation to Ukraine, so that way you could get a taste of these delicious watermelons. And we're going to be muting that. But we can see them eating the watermelon here. I've heard that these things are pretty good. And we see them taking pictures of him. I mean, they are a whole icon of Ukraine. We see this guy here showing off the watermelon, and
got a
that's
whole
huge.
chunk.
Man, he got the whole piece. Like, he got the whole half piece of the watermelon. And moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see that going back to business, the 36th Brigade, also in the southern area of Ukraine near to Kherson, was using a BM-21 Grad to fire on Russians on the other side of the river, right here in this picture. Really interesting to see, and good to know that you're continuing on those kinds of efforts. But with that, we are now going to be moving on out of the southern region and up into Kyiv, where we got the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky today, here on day 872 of the war. And so, without further ado, here is the speech, and it is 2 minutes and 40 seconds long, Matthew.
I wish you health,
We praise
fellow.
our speech. I wish you health, fellow Ukrainians, but can we say it in the correct tone?
Yes, and here is speech.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Неділя, ранок, весь тиждень був насичений подіями, перемовинами. Зараз після візиту в Сполучені Штати є рішення щодо нових патріотів та десятків інших систем ППО. Ми працюємо, щоб сила і кількість українських патріотів стали ще більшими. Я вдячний усім нашим партнерам, хто допомагає. Є 3 нові безпекові угоди для України: Польща, Люксембург, Румунія. І зараз команда працює над ще новими документами. Будуть угоди з Чехією, Словенією. Та прийняли рішення після зустрічі з прем'єром Ірландії теж готувати угоду. Є договір щодо України, Ukrainian Compact, який був схвалений на саміті НАТО у Вашингтоні. Це все про зброю для наших воїнів, про роботу оборонних кампаній в Україні та з Україною, про підтримку нашого відновлення, все максимально конкретно і дійсно підтримує наш захист життя. Є нові оборонні пакети, десятки зустрічей за тиждень з лідерами країн, керівниками урядів, з конгресменами, суспільними лідерами Америки, з президентом Байденом, зі спікером Джонсоном, і після зустрічі з губернаторами штатів Америки я проведу зустріч із нашими керівниками областей. Нам потрібна співпраця між регіонами, теж між громадами та лідерами громад безпосередньо. Це і медицина, це і укриття, це і оборонні індустрії тощо. Сполучені Штати готові допомагати на всіх цих рівнях. І сьогоднішня подія в Америці. Ще кілька слів про те, що сталося, коли вже у нас в Україні була ніч, замах на життя Дональда Трампа, жахливий злочин, який можна тільки засуджувати і який демонструє, наскільки серйозні виклики глобально зараз перед демократією. Насильство в жодній формі і ніде абсолютно не повинно взяти гору. Я впевнений, Америка гідно пройде цей виклик. Я бажаю якнайшвидшого відновлення пану Трампу, сил, підтримки усім, хто постраждав. Хай кожен злий умисел зазнає невдач. І хай усі, хто може повертати безпеку, дійсно роблять це. Слава Україні!
And
Huron Slava.
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 872 of the war. And that moves us on into a second segment of the stream tonight where we get to talk to all of y'all. And I got to say, what a fundraiser it has been tonight. $4,700 raised at this point. We're actually just $1 short of that at $4,699, but I like to round up. It sounds nice. $4,700 raised for revived soldiers of Ukraine. And not only that, so many people have watched this stream so far, with tonight's peak being at around 8.6 thousand live viewers and about 62,000 people having watched so far. It's been an absolutely incredible fundraiser and a live stream the entire way tonight. And I got to say, a huge thanks to all of y'all who've watched so far. We still have a little bit to go, so make sure to stick around because this is always a fun and really interesting segment to get into here. But still, a huge thanks to everyone. And also, Matthew, do we have any top donors that we haven't been able to call out yet?
So no, we are fresh out of top donors for the night. But of course, we've had a bunch of smaller donations that have come in that's gotten us up to that $4,705 figure. So once again, huge shout out to the entire audience.
And of course, a huge shout out once again. And with that, I suppose, Matthew, it is time for us to move into them questions. Do we have some questions? Are they good? And what are they?
All right, so we've got our first question here of the final question segment, and this one goes to Tony Stankard. He says, why do they seem to be having a much harder time in the south than in the north? And they are pushing Russia back in the north, but losing ground in the south. And why, and what's the difference?
The difference is that in the southern region, Ukraine is dealing with a somewhat disadvantageous frontline position due to the collapse of the 110th Brigade in the area of northeastern Avdiivka during the actual battle for the city. They lost a fairly substantial amount of ground. Huge shout out to LSA Rocks, who threw in 150.
Hey.
Dang! But after they lost a substantial amount of ground in northern Avdiivka, the front line has always been in a rapid state of attempting to fall back, create rapid defensive positions, and then the Russians bring forward a massive sledgehammer, pretty much. That's what the best way I can describe the Russian armed forces in this area. It is a massive sized sledgehammer that just grinds itself down on Ukrainian defensive positions, and while they are grinding themselves down at a massive speed, they usually end up grinding down the Ukrainian defensive forces enough that they end up having to fall back, so that way they can try and conserve their own manpower and resources on the Ukrainian side. And that's why the Russians are able to make advances down here. It doesn't really have to do with superior Russian planning. It just has to do with they have a large amount of Russian forces still involved in the Avdiivka area, and they just keep pushing forward despite the losses that they're sustaining. Even if the Ukrainians are able to conduct a very deadly defensive, it just isn't enough as the Russians just keep moving forward, and they just really don't run out of people. But in the difference with the northern area is entirely different. It is an area filled with extremely low trained troops. It does not have a large amount of reserve forces from what we understand, and so losses up here by the Russians are felt a lot more than they are around Avdiivka. And that means that Ukrainian forces were able to whittle down Russian forces so much that they pretty much lost any available reserves that they had, and that means that the Ukrainian position in this battle turned into an advantageous one where they were able to conduct a counterattack. So that's why they're able to. Dang!
Oh, Enforcer, we just had $5,000 raised at the $3,000 goal.
Damn! Yeah! And a huge shout out to.
Man, we had 5,000 without even setting it for a goal. It just got there on its own thanks to the audience. A huge shout out to the LSA. How many places do you see that? You set a goal and it gets almost, not all the way, but almost double. That is tremendous to see.
I mean, that is crazy, man. And I got to say, huge shout out to Poipel Joyble, who threw in a $50 donation, and a huge shout out to Andy L, who threw in a $145 donation as well. A huge shout out to both of y'all, because y'all and LSA Rocks, who just threw in $150, all three of y'all got that thing up to $5,000. That is absolutely crazy. But still, huge shout out to y'all. Really cool to see. But getting back to my answer about why the Ukrainians are able to make progress in the north, that's generally why. And so I hope I was able to answer that question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next question here is going to go to Tom Exman, who says, here's a good question, Matt. He said, how many total Russian oil facilities has Ukraine stricken now so far in the war in 2024?
From what we've been told, they have been able to strike about 17% of all Russian oil-producing abilities inside the Russian Federation. Well, actually, gas-producing facilities inside the Russian Federation, or refining abilities, if you want to put it that way. So 17% has been knocked out. That doesn't sound like a large part of the Russian refining ability, but it's actually substantial, considering that refining abilities in Russia were only able to produce close to the amount that Russia consumed per day, and even still, Russia was having to purchase some gas and other fuel sources from outside of the country because they were not able to produce them in their refined form enough. And so because of that, while it's only 17%, it's actually creating a massive fuel deficit in Russia every single day, which is starting to compound. It's starting to cause a lot of problems economically for the Russians, especially coming on into the later part of this year. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least with the information that we have handy. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so jumping into our next question here. It looks like we have one from Uncle Sam. Very patriotic Uncle Sam. He said, there isn't much information about the Saab Gripen being in war to this day, and how would it actually fare in a real live wartime action?
The Saab Gripen I would assume, perform fairly well because technologically it's up to par with an F-16. It's just that it does not have the amount of payload ability that an F-16 has. It just carries less weight in terms of weaponry, so it should be able to perform quite well. But what's actually interesting about that is if we're talking about in an air-to-air standoff in between a Gripen and an F-16, the Gripen would actually do as good as the F-16. That's actually the shocking thing about it, because the F-16 can use AIM-120 AMRAAMs and AIM-9Xs, which is what the F-16 currently uses in American service, and also they have the same amount of hard points. The F-16 is able to mount 6 air-to-air missiles. The Gripen is able to do the exact same. So that means on a missile-to-missile standoff in an air conflict, while LSA Rocks throws in a $500 donation, throwing the fundraiser up to an unbelievable $5,500. Damn!
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. LSA Rocks is coming in pretty hard here at the very end. Like $5,500 raised. That's crazy. Man, it's almost double.
Man, LSA Rocks came and just started running victory laps. Just like, dang, man. It's like, that's crazy. Huge shout out to you, LSA Rocks. And I hope that everyone gives you a huge thanks, because your support is massive tonight. It's going to be helping out in a big way in Ukraine. But to get around to the answer for that question, I think the Gripen will perform quite well. Also, it is a fairly maneuverable aircraft, which doesn't really mean too much in the modern world because it never really devolves into a dogfight anymore. But if it did, it would do quite well. And LSA Rocks just threw in another 500. Damn!
Holy moly. 6,000 raised. We've doubled the goal.
Hey!
Let's go.
Put an LSA in the chat, people. Put it in there. That is crazy. That we've gotten to $6,039 raised on the fundraiser. That is nuts.
That is crazy, man. I love to see it. Huge shout out to LSA Rocks for getting us to double the goal. I honestly did not think we were going to double the goal tonight. I thought we were going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,500 to 4,000. But, man, 6,000. This is tremendous. Where else do you see this happening on YouTube? I don't see this happening every Sunday anywhere else.
Man, I'm telling you, that is crazy, man. Only in the LSA, man. Put an LSA in the chat for that. I'm going to put an LSA in the chat. That was crazy right there. That's deserving of an LSA. Nuts. Huge thank you to you, by the way, LSA Rocks. That is absolutely wonderful. And so with that, I hope I was able to answer that question about the Gripen fairly well, and I hope I was able to address this absolute insanity that's coming in at the end of the stream. My goodness. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next question here goes to Jim Banks. He said, did you hear about the bot farm that was raided very recently?
Yes, I did. The Department of Justice was able to do some work. They seized an entire bot farm and 1,000 accounts, which is very good to hear. I'm happy to hear that. It shows me the U.S. government is aware of the kind of threat that's being posed by foreign agents posing as Americans and trying to sway the American public discourse, and I'm very happy to see that they were able to put a stop to that, in my personal opinion. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to that next one.
All right, and this question is going to go to Mr. Shipwright, who says, have y'all seen where the military is trying to replace the CRAM with the SEA-RAM, S-E-A-RAM?
SEA-RAM, S-E-A-RAM.
I don't know why. I kind of feel like that might be like a subtle joke or something like that, because it's CRAM like the letter C, or the SEA-RAM. Like, is there really a difference?
I don't know. I pulled it up and I couldn't find it. Wait, hang on. Hang on. Hold up. Wait a minute. Accept necessary cookies only, because I trust Raytheon. I don't. But hey, I don't trust Raytheon. Oh crap, dude! Like, I moved it and everything went black. I was like, I don't trust Raytheon, and then they're like, screw you, man. But anyways, here it is: the CRAM ship defense system. This is apparently
it's a rocket system now. It's not like the minigun style system anymore.
Apparently not, but it looks like it uses the same kind of radar that was on the CWIS. Yeah, I think it was the CWIS or the CRAM. But let's see. The CRAM ship defense system defends against supersonic and subsonic threats, including cruise missiles, drones, and choppas. The innovative CRAM system is modeled after the Phalanx weapon system, replacing the 20mm Gatling gun with a launcher that pinpoints its target and fires up to 11 RAM missiles. It combines the accuracy, extended range, and agility of the RAM missile with the high-resolution search and track sensor and reliable quick response of the Phalanx Block 1B system. An affordable capability upgrade, this above-deck system fits fits the footprint of the phalanx system, uses the same power, and requires minimal modification. So this appears to be an attempt to try and get a different kind of a defense system, of course, pretty much the same as the normal CIWS, but missile-based. I don't really know if this would be better or this would be worse, because at one point, this is probably far more accurate. On a second point, there's only 11 available missiles, meaning that after you run out of those 11 missiles, you either have to try and reload the system in the middle of combat, and if there are still anti-ship missiles or any other kind of threats coming your way, well, you're just plumb out of luck at that point. But at the same time, I don't know how long a phalanx system or a CIWS would last given how much ammo it has in that kind of a situation. So I would have to do a little bit more of an analysis on this. To be honest, this doesn't sound that bad. It actually sounds fairly good at the outset, but I would have to do a little bit more research to see if that is really a good system that would be an improvement upon the already existing CIWS or CRAM system or the phalanx that is on board current vessels in the U.S. Navy. But I still think it's kind of neat. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Really interesting question. Matthew, do you have any extra comments about this thing? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? What's your thoughts?
You know, honestly, if it was like a mix between the missile-based system and also the minigun, if it was like both combined into one, I would probably be for it. But this one looks like it's solely missile-based. And I'm not saying that Raytheon doesn't know what they're doing or something like that. Obviously, they're experts in this, but they probably know that it's going to work better. But to me, just from the layman's perspective, I would say it would probably be better to have the minigun as a backup at least in case the missile system failed, because you have a lot less opportunities, only about 11 or so, or maybe 10, to actually shoot down whatever threat's coming in with this new system. So I don't know. I kind of like have gotten so used to the old system and how effective it was. I didn't really hear any complaints out of it, out of the old one. And you know, I guess you could go along the lines of don't fix what's broken or don't fix what's not broken. And you know, it really wasn't broken. So I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing. Not really sure. I'll be curious to see how it actually holds up in trials, though.
Man, I'll tell you something though. The military really is into the idea if it isn't broken, don't fix it, because you have this thing. Oh, come on. Hang on, let me go down to here. You have this thing. I'm tired, boss.
Oh, yeah?
Like, the AR platform.
It works.
The AR platform has been in service with the U.S. military since 1965. So it is.
But you know, they actually did replace it, though, with that SIG. It's got a whole new system in it.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Remember, they threw the SIG spear out.
They threw it out? What do you mean? I thought they had just adopted it.
At the last minute, they ditched it.
No way. Like, pull up, like, can I see proof? Like, on this one, I need to see proof.
SIG spear. Let's see here. Let me go to the Wikipedia. We know that Wikipedia is tried and true. And let's see here.
Also, that is one cheap-ass looking bipod on the front of that thing. I don't know if this is the real service rifle or not, but that is a disgraceful. It looks like plastic, if I'm seeing this correctly.
It does. I'm trying to find something where it says that they ditched this thing. Let's see. Hang on. It was around somewhere. They said it's over. They said they ditched it. SIG spear, U.S. Army. There's got to be some news on this thing. So let's see. Hang on. I think I got it. Let's see. Here we go. Well, at least on Wikipedia, they have a mention here that the XM7s are being delivered to the 101st Airborne, which is an air assault division, and then it is also being delivered to the 75th Rangers for user tests. But the Army still has not guaranteed that this thing is going to be widespread, distributed, and then end up becoming the service rifle, even now.
Well, see, the reason why I asked you for the proof on this one is because I saw yesterday, I think it was on one of the military like footage channels, one of them out there had put out a video of the soldiers actually unboxing the SIG and actually like taking pictures with the officers with it. But that might be that test unit you were talking about. But I would be shocked if they absolutely scrapped this all together, because they put a lot of money into R&D on that weapon, and for it just to be thrown out like that, that would be kind of shocking.
Man, hang on. Let's see. XM. See, that's from April 17th of 2024. So let's see. So it looks as though the XM. Okay, the XMA was of course discontinued. see. I'm trying to find it because I swear I saw the article. And I cannot find it now. Because I remember I saw that. And I think I brought it up to you as like a passing comment. I was like, dude, they're keeping with the M4, man. But I can't tell now because it seems like a lot of people are saying that they're still going forward with it. So maybe my information's wrong. Because they're saying right here, but this is an AI overview. I'm not trusting that because they get crap wrong all the time in that thing because I've seen it before. I'm like, that's a lie. Let me see if I can find something on it. March 29th, 2024. Dude, that thing is
see,
kinda
there's the
beat.
soldiers holding it.
Yeah, but let's see here. The Army has officially fielded. Long enough to replace the M4 and M16. 1st Battalion, 506, 101st Airborne at Fort Campbell, XM7. Let's see here. Produced, intend to replace. Let's see. Both new rifles chamber at 6.8 provide improved range and lethality. The next generation squad weapon. Let's see.
Oh, wait a minute. This one has that optic on it that, like, it doesn't prevent or prevents you from firing until you get a target lock. Isn't that right?
I'm not really sure on that one. I don't know a lot about that optic. I'll have to look into that off air a little bit to find out more, maybe. But let's see. As a result, let's see here, based on. Dang, dude, this is a lot of fluff. I'm just trying to see if they're. Let's see.
It is heavier, though. It says it's 9.8 pounds. That's a lot.
Dang, dude, that thing is like a foul. It's like, geez, dude. It's like, if you're going to have a gun that's 9.8 pounds, just go with like an M14 again or something. Just go all the way up back to 7.62 by 51 instead of 6.8. But let's see here. According to the Army's physical budget, the service has a long-term plan of buying 111,428 XM7 rifles, 13,334 XM250 automatic rifles, and 124,749 XM157 fire control devices, stretching into the 2030s. So,
So they're still going forward with it then.
So they are going forward with it, according to this. So it seems as though my information was wrong. They are finally replacing the classic AR platform, and I'm calling it the AR because the M16, the M4, they're all born out of the AR-15, the Armalite 15. That was the original rifle, and then everything else came as a result of the AR-15. But still, man, right now this thing has been in service since 1965, so it's been about 50, 60 years. It's the longest serving rifle, believe it or not, in U.S. military history. No joke.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how the SIG holds up, like actually using it in battle or not. You know, like I said before, I'm personally kind of the mindset if it's not broken, then don't fix it. And really, there's nothing new that the other countries are coming out with that really beats our rifle at this point, the M4 carbine that we're looking at right here, at least in my opinion. So while the SIG may be a technological upgrade, to me, it seems like there might be more things that can break because it seems like it's a little bit more complicated, at least from what I've heard. But also, I saw Kana said in the live chat, I seen the Army unboxing the SIG Spear 2 on YouTube. I found that whole video funny because we had the soldiers out there unboxing that new gun. And then after it was unboxed by the soldiers, the officers then stepped in and took it from the soldiers and said, we'll take that. And then they went off and took a picture with it like it was them who unboxed it and everything. And the other soldiers were just left behind like, well, there went our toys. They've taken them. But just I like the look of it, the new one that is the SIG Spear, but I don't know how it's actually going to hold up.
There are some that you can actually get from SIG. Let's take a look at them. Do they come in 6.8 yet? No. They all come in 7.62 by 5.1. Dude, that's kind of sad, man. Because
that's a big round.
Yeah, that's 308. So, well, you know, you could put 308 in it, or you could put 7.62 by 5.1 in it. Oh, wait a minute. Is that the optic?
No, I don't think that's that Vortex optic. I think that's a different one.
Yeah, I don't think that's it. You know,
it looks bulky. I mean, I'll be honest with you, the rail system, that's a chunky rail system. I mean, even the old style, like quad Picatinny rails that are on my Daniel over here, that they used to use on some of them for some units in the military, those are heavy. These look heavier, and that's not good in my opinion. You don't want to add weight to something if you can avoid it.
Dude, this thing is a chunky boy. I mean, this thing is huge. And look at that, dude. They put that little AR stock on the back of it. It just looks out of place. Like, it looks small, you know?
Yeah, the whole upper on it is crazy too. It's like a what do they call it? It's a top heavy upper, like it could flip over if it was like a car or something like that. It's really tall, like in the upper part of the gun.
But you know something, Matthew? This is my take on this thing. All right, I'm gonna put out a hot take on the six spear. I don't think that this thing really is getting rid of the M4 because if you look at that, Matthew, if you actually look at that lower and upper, I'm not going to lie, it just kind of looks like it looks like an AR-10 that has been up calibered to 6.8 millimeter. It doesn't really look, at least from the outside, that it would be mechanically different from an AR.
It is though. If you like punch in, or if they have like a diagram on this model thing right here, you'll see it's a weird mechanism inside of it. I don't think it's the traditional system.
Sadly, I don't think we can do that because YouTube has a rule about showing the internals of a gun, so I don't think we can do that. But I will say this though, it is weird looking. I don't think it's that bad actually. I mean, it does look fairly modern. I'll give it that. I would be very interested to see how this thing does. And I'm also very interested that they gave it to the 101st Airborne and the 75th Rangers first. And I'm going to be wondering how in the world are they even going to get any usable experience with this? Because right now, as y'all will know, we are not involved in any actual conflicts anywhere around the world right now at all, at least in any large form. Not even like Iraq or Afghanistan in an asymmetrical form. We're not even involved in those anymore. So where in the world would they send the 101st and the 75th for them to get practical combat experience with the new spear and then also the brand new machine gun that they're going to be putting into those units? I don't know how they're going to get that. So I guess they're just going to sit around and think, well, in theory, it's pretty cool. But beyond that, I guess they're not going to get to actually get any kind of a combat testing on this thing and see if it really is as good as they think it is or not. But still, I mean, it's not that bad. It's not that bad looking. I would be interested in getting one of these things and getting to try it, but considering that these are in 7.62, it's not really worth trying because it would just be like shooting like a Scar Heavy. At that point, it wouldn't really be anything that much different. I would like to try out that new 6.8 round though. That would be really interesting.
Now, if you told me you could get one gun for free, you could either get the Sig Spear or you could get the Scar Heavy. I would honestly probably pick the Spear right here because well, I like the Scar for some reason. The more I've looked at the Scar over time, I used to be a really big fanboy of the Scar. Like it was just like a really cool, legendary looking gun. But the more I've looked at it, I'm like, for some reason, I don't like it. I can't identify what it is with it or something. There's something about it when the longer you look at it, the more you kind of get turned off by it. I think it might be the multicolored parts of the gun that might be what's doing it for me or something like that. But I would rather have the Spear between the two.
I just personally don't like the Scar. Like I just never did. And also it's plastic. You know, like it is like the Barbie World rifle. It is entirely plastic, and I'm just not a big fan of that. I like my guns to have a lot of metal on them. Like it's fine to have plastic, sure. Every gun has a lot of plastic on them, but I like them to be mostly metallic. There are some exceptions to that rule, but the Scar, I don't know. I've just never really liked it, me personally. A lot of people do, but not me. And then
I'm being called a heretic for this.
Really?
Now, I will say though, and it's also they're joking by the way, but the Scar 20S, I'll make an exception for that one. I still like that one. It has a different look. It looks totally different than the other ones.
I'll be honest. If we're talking about a gun in 308, I would say that an FN FAL is my personal favorites. Oh, not this one. It has a short barrel. Something like this. I personally say that still stands up in the modern day. That's why so many nations still use this as their service rifle these days. It has the same stopping power as a Scar Heavy or that 6 Spear in 7.62 by 51. In me personally, I just like how it works. It's just a fairly good rifle in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean it looks like it's just down to business. There's no frills or anything about it. It doesn't look stand outish like a Scar or like a Spear, but it looks like it gets the job done.
Oh, it gets the job done, man. Like, I don't think you have to doubt that at all, because this thing's getting the job done for everyone. Let me see here if I can show you a good picture. This is actually from, I believe, if I'm correct, I might be wrong on this. I think this is a picture from the Lebanese Civil War. And then this is a picture from, sadly, I wouldn't even know. I think this is like Brazil, maybe. But they were used by everyone, everywhere. And there was a really cool one that I'll show you if I can find it, because there's so many different iterations of the FAL, like literally a million. A milli. Let me see if I can find it. Dang, it's so difficult to find one when you want to. Um,
Now, Adam Glegg, he said the AAC Honey Badger, the legendary. Now that is one gun right there, the Honey Badger, in the AAC format and also the new Q format. I will always forever be a big fan of that gun. The Honey Badger is a legendary thing, and the reason why I think that is because it was always in Call of Duty. I know that sounds stupid for a reason to like a gun, but I always saw it in Call of Duty. It was the gun I always used in Call of Duty, and I finally got one in real life, and the gun is just like literally on the wall like a piece of art. Like that thing is a piece of art. The Honey Badger is a beautiful gun. Probably the most cool and beautiful looking gun on the market. It's my all-time favorite.
dang, dude, save some loving for the rest of the guys. Like, jeez, man. Like,
No, man, I make no bones about it. Honey Badger, hands down. If I had to give away guns or something like that, or like sell them, Honey Badger would be staying. Everything else would go.
and then a word from the CEO of that company. I hate the poors. It's like it's just
Yeah,
like
I mean, he can be quiet about the poors and people like me that have a hard time like buying like the rounds and stuff for it. It's like 300 black's expensive. I don't get to shoot it very often because the bullets are like $2 a piece. So I'm like, how the hell are we going to shoot $2 a piece bullets and not go broke? So it kind of like it's kind of really a work of art because it really is all that's all it's really good for at this point is a work of art unless you want to spend freaking fortunes on ammunition.
man, I'm telling you what. But with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. With everything involved, about long-serving weapons. But still, thank you once again for asking a really interesting question. I hope you enjoyed the rabbit hole there. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and real quick, huge shout out to Viewer V, who put in a $50 donation, and thank you very much, viewer, for that support. Very generous as well. And we have another question here. This one goes to John J. He says, "What are your thoughts on the Russian economy tanking because of the pension payouts for the wounded and the dead?"
I have heard that is a part of it. I've heard that really everything is ending up being a major part of the Russian economic decline, but that certainly would be a part of it without a doubt. And also, we can see that because they're starting to refuse really to pay out those payments for dead and wounded. But I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I see Andy L in the live chat said, I can beat Honey Badger. And yes, he can. Actually, a lot of guns can beat the Honey Badger because I particularly have the pistol version of it. So a very short barrel. So the range is not that great on it. I'll be honest with you. It's not a long-range rifle by any means. It's more of like I guess you could call it close quarters combat if you want to label it like that. Or you could just call it a gun. It is what it is. But it definitely is not going to beat your sniper rifle. There's actually not too many guns that can beat Andy L's sniper rifle because it's top of the line and it shoots out far, very far actually, with accuracy.
Hold up, I can beat it all. The punt gun.
The punt gun. Oh, wait a minute. While I'm on the top of everything about sniper rifles, speaking of that event that happened yesterday with the shooting and the assassination attempt and all that, I got an up-close photo of what the snipers were using to take the shooter out. Do you know what sniper rifle they were using? What was that?
Remington 700s that were really modified.
Nope, that's not it. Take a second stab at it.
ACR International?
Yep, it was Accuracy International. It was the $13,000 ACR
Really?
sniper. And it had a really big scope, like one of the very expensive scopes on it. I can't recall what the brand was on the scope. They also had a carbon fiber bipod or tripod for it as well. It was standing on, which is also as expensive as the gun, I think. So a very expensive piece of kit for them to take a long time to finally take the guy out. So they're very well equipped, but I'm not sure if they're as fast as they should be.
Dude, they sat there. They were like me, man. When I go to the CMP, they're like, okay, make sure that the wind's right. Make sure the elevation's right. Okay, let's go through the checklist. Okay. And it's like, it's 100-yard shot. Just shoot. You're not going to miss. But also, Matthew, this gun right here, man, I thought you were going to do this when you saw it.
Brother,
I thought you were going to
No, I was, man. I was just thinking about that Secret Service moment. But yeah, man, brother, on this one, I don't like it.
Brother, you want to see something that was an abomination that I found out a little while ago about? The Dial carbine. This thing is a mix in between a Lee Enfield, and then they put a 45 caliber magazine in it, I think for a 1911 or something along those lines, and then they built an integrated suppressor onto it.
Now that's kind of whack.
This thing is whack. But you want to see something that's even more whack? Chinese bullpup.
Chinese bullpup.
I need to find the right one. It's not these. It's one that's...
Bing Shilling.
Oh, here it is. The 86, the Type 86.
Oh.
Brother, like,
Brother, man, this really is brother. Like, what the hell is this? This looks like something that North Korea might put out.
oh, dude, it was like, I think there's only 5,000 of these things in America because they got banned from import. But you will not believe how much they go for on the collector's market right now. They're in between $5.5 to $6.5 thousand for this hideous thing.
Man. What are people crazy? I mean, I get it, it's rare, but even being rare, it's like it's not valuable. I mean, look at it. It's like very basic stamped metal. It's not valuable to me.
Man, I don't think anyone's disagreeing with you there. Like, I don't think anyone is except for the collectors that own it. But you know, a rifle that I really think is kind of cool because it's really ugly looking is let me think. No, it's not a Moss rifle. What is it? I'm trying to think of it. It's something from in the West. Oh, wait a minute, I know what it is. This thing, the G11.
Yeah, I've seen this before. There's nothing to say except for I'm sorry.
It's weird. Like, it's just
I'm
really
sorry,
weird.
man. Whoever designed this thing, I'm sorry that it turned out like this.
And then also there was one more. The gyrojet. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Have you ever heard of a gyrojet?
No, is it a gun?
It is a series of guns. They actually made a rifle gyrojet. This thing.
And why is it called the gyrojet?
It uses a special kind of ammo. I really can't explain how the ammo works, but it's like each bullet is a little rocket. I think that's how it kind of works, if I remember right. But the gyrojet was a very weird concept. The ammo was wildly expensive back in the day, and that's why it wasn't really commercially successful. But there are some of these out here, and they are really expensive. Well, let me go see if I can get you a video on the gyrojet. Let's see. Gyrojet firing. See if I can get a video of that. Let's see. Dang, dude, they don't really have a lot of videos on the gyrojet. Okay, so I'm going to show y'all something wild. I'm going to show y'all a video of someone shooting the gyrojet. Dude, this thing was uploaded 6 years ago, and it looks like the person who filmed this was watching YouTube 12 years ago. So we're watching someone watching a video. So here's the clip, but this is what a gyrojet looks like when it shoots. I don't know what that noise is. We're going to mute that. But this is what it looks like. So it fires, and then the bullet actually has little rockets inside of it that propel it towards the target. Kind of cool, right?
That's weird. Yeah, it's. I guess it's kind of cool. I mean, I guess.
Maybe. But those gyrojets are wildly expensive these days. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one is going to go to, let's see here. This one's going to go to Barry Woodward, who says, why do the weak-ass countries have more of a voice than an individual country? What the F?
Reread that one again.
I think Barry's trying to say, why do the weaker countries form an alliance and then have more of a voice than an individual country? What the hell?
I don't know. That's a good question, Barry Woodward. I would actually have to declare ignorance because I don't really think I'm qualified to answer that kind of a question, to be honest. I think that's above my pay grade, really. But that is a great question, though, Barry, and I will be trying to look into finding a good answer to that in the future. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Bia Arthur, who says, can the Ukraine military survive without U.S. aid support? And if the will of the people and the USA decides to discontinue aid, will the European aid be enough?
From what we understand, when the last time happened that USA didn't arrive in Ukraine, Zelensky actually said Ukraine could not hold on without a united or combined American and European support. So if American support ends, we will assume that there will most likely be a very unfortunate compromise in Ukraine that will be made where Russia will be ceded a large amount of territory. The Ukrainian state will survive, however, but we will not see that Western interests are pursued to their completion inside of Ukraine. That's what we would be expecting if U.S. support is cut here in the near future due to events occurring inside the United States and unfolding that may not be positive for Ukraine. It wouldn't be the end of the world if that happened. It would be a very unfortunate thing. It would be somewhat disappointing. But I do want to make it very clear, it wouldn't be the end of the world for America or for Europe. We would probably see, if anything, a war would probably start up in Ukraine again in the future after that, or Putin would die and then Russians in between that time, and Russia's ambitions would completely change again, which may be highly likely or very possible. And so...
I personally think that considering the fact that the possibility of Ukraine aid maybe getting reduced significantly or cut off, I think the European Union has started really taking that into consideration, and they're probably ramping things up because you've noticed a lot of the European Union countries have started manufacturing new weapons and they've expanded production, etc. And I think that maybe 6 months to maybe a year down the road, if the support does get reduced or something like that happens, I think the EU might be able to stand up and maybe single-handedly fund and also supply Ukraine with enough aid to be able to hold the Russians off until something changes. But honestly, I just don't think that the U.S. will ever cut off aid to Ukraine. I personally don't think it's going to happen. People can say what they want here and there and yonder, but the reality of it is when politics get pushed out of the way and reality sets in, I don't think the Ukraine aid is going to get totally shut off. That's just simply not going to happen, in my opinion. I might get proven wrong, but I'm going to lay my bets on it probably will never happen.
I would actually have to be honest with y'all. I don't think that's going to happen either. I'm sure there will be some justification made, no matter what happens here in America, to continue support to Ukraine, because it's something that I believe is just an inevitable certainty. It is something that America must do. I haven't seen enough proof in the past to really indicate that anyone was strongly anti-Ukraine before the war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine started, and of course you see a natural split of people saying that they support Ukraine entirely and they condemn Ukraine entirely, but that's just what happens. But in the end, from what we know of how things went before this war broke out, everyone would probably end up supporting Ukraine in the end. But we'll have to wait and see about that. But still, I hope that does address that the best we can, and it is the end of tonight's stream at an unbelievable finish. With $6.2 thousand raised for Revived Soldiers of Ukraine, over twice the amount that we intended to raise tonight for Revived Soldiers, it was raised. Absolutely incredible, and we are so proud to see the Lee Spring Army, of course, stepping forward and doing incredible things that aren't seen really anywhere else in the Ukraine war community. Y'all are truly an incredibly profound group, and I gotta say a huge thanks to y'all once again for fundraising for Revived Soldiers of Ukraine tonight, and a huge thanks to everyone who's watched tonight, all 72,000 people who have watched this stream so far. And so with that, I thank you all so much once again for watching, and we will see you all on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, good night, folks. And like the Enforcer said, huge shout out to everyone tonight for donating to the fundraiser and getting us up to a whopping $6,200 raised. That is definitely a feat, and that is tremendous to see. And a huge shout out to everyone for that. And Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, get some rest. We'll see you all on Tuesday night and maybe midday tomorrow as well if there's enough news to cover. But with that, thank you all once again, and good night.
The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.